What is up? What is up, everyone? What's up, Just Dev? Kilobyte, how's it going? You hate USB headers. Broke it. Yeah, you rip the header off your motherboard. USB 3 ones, they're very tight, they'll do that. Yeah, sorry I didn't make stream last night. Went out with a vendor. They took us out for dinner. Ended up being out way later than I had anticipated. And, got a really nice steak out of it, at least. Got like $120 steak. I didn't have to pay for it. Ripped it off, yet the pins are perfectly straight like they on Viagra. Yeah, if you pull the actual plastic off, you should be able to stick it back on. I've done that before, where I ripped it off and it worked fine. That was on my last motherboard. It worked fine until the motherboard died like 4 or 5 years later. So perfectly unrelated to that whole incident. But yeah. So yeah, went out to a really nice steakhouse. Got a nice espresso martini with it. Gotten all bougie. I'm pretty sure we probably got like a good like 150 per person at least when you look at the bill, but I didn't have to pay for it. You slapped your RX 550 in. Want me to send you? Oh yeah. Send me the address whenever. So when I get my new GPU this weekend for my honeypot, which will be replacing the 1660 Super in the same physical machine, I'll just send you the 1660 Super because I already have a 3070 laying around, and I don't need 2 decent GPUs laying around gathering dust. So I'll keep the 3070. You can get the 1660 Super. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was nice. Got to, CrowdStrike took me out, along with a couple members of the team. Wined and dined us. Yeah. I don't know, do I see comments on TikTok? You tell me. Am I responding to a comment on TikTok? I'm just being sarcastic here. You had a homemade mushroom burger, it was good. Yeah, I bet. That sounds good. I had some really good mushrooms with my steak last night. We had steak with the mushrooms, a baked potato, some really good Brussels sprouts, mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, and the steak was Australian Wagyu New York strip. Chief never sees TikTok. Yeah, TikTok doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. But yeah, it was a really good steak. Probably never gonna eat there again because, look, even if I had that kind of money, I can't justify going and spending $100 and some odd on a steak. I just can't. But if somebody else is paying for it, sure, why not? So yeah, this job's been pretty good already to start out because, on the last job, they would always take the directors and stuff out, but never the team members. Do you know about MITRE ATT&CK? Can you tell if and how did you use it in the last couple of years? Yeah, MITRE ATT&CK is basically just a whole bunch of tactics and techniques when attacking and exfiltrating data. All it is basically just, if you go look at the... there's a website where you can go and find all of them. Basically, it's just a framework that they're mapped to, and different applications will help map the different, tactics and techniques to it. So I've used it for many years. There's, what is it? There's MITRE ATT&CK, and then Stride is the other model that people use. But MITRE ATT&CK is the more commonly used one. Yeah, I'm actually mapping, MITRE to my home lab for the SimSOAR I'm building out on GitHub. So if you go to my GitHub and see the was it? There's a Docker, I can't remember the name off the top of my head because I'm like so brain fried today. Hold on. GitHub.com. Let me look up what my own damn repo's name is. Not pfSense SimStack. That's part of the stack. Is it Docker Sim Docker Stack? I couldn't remember the order. It's Sim Docker Stack. But in there, I'm mapping Waza to the MITRE ATT&CK framework on stuff. So there was an update from practical point of view. There's not really been much of an update. There's been updates to some of the tactics and techniques over the years, but not really an update to the point of view. It's still well regarded. Jesus moving up in the world. I can say I got to know him before he got famous. I'm just a regular dude who eats a steak one bite at a time. And one of the contributors didn't work on it since had to go to war in 2022. Yeah, that kind of bites. War sucks. It is what it is. $120 steak. Yeah. Look, if a vendor's gonna take me out for like an expensive steak, I'm not gonna say no, okay? God knows the company I work for pays them enough that the least they can do is buy us a damn steak. I don't need 10 commercials about a new razor. I have a safety razor that's 90 years old. I still use the Philips One blade for my stuff. This weekend I'm gonna try getting these twin gate nodes up. I got the Unify node racked on the Raspberry Pi 4 over there, so I've officially decommed the Unify Cloud Key Gen 2 over here. This still technically works. The battery's just dead in it, and it's like next to impossible to repair and replace these. So I was just like, look, if I can't get this to even talk to my NUT server to read my my APC UPS, then I'm gonna build my own Unify OS server little device, so that way if it ever does kick the main power off, at least the APC can keep it safely on, and then whenever it does need to shut down, it can send the signal to all the devices at once to safely shut down. So, yeah. The twin gate nodes will be up next, because I decommed the VPN a while ago, and that'll be how I will remote access into the network. So that'll be my approach into SASE. OpenVPN and WireGuard are officially off the home lab. Yeah, I have a NUT server. I nut all over my lab. Giggity. No, I have my Synology NAS does double duty, so you can plug in your APC or any UPS to it and have it serve as the UPS, or you can, really turn it into a client if you want, but then you have to log in and configure it and all that. But I was just like, may as well just have it do double duty. So I have one port opened up on a couple of networks for the NUT server. Do you think games like Rainbow Six and GTA Online get support for Linux in the future? GTA used to work on Linux. I don't know what they did, but it used to work on Linux. We had streams a couple years ago of me playing it on Linux. So unless something changed, that's not a limitation of Linux. That's an issue with developers. And I think people need to start shifting the mindset of, oh, that's an issue with Linux, to developers need to start supporting Linux. They introduced kernel battle eye. Then that's a developer issue. The problem is a lot of gamers basically bend over and take it up the butt from developers, because a lot of people are just like, No, you know what? I just want to play this one game. I don't care what the hell they do. Instead of saying, you know what? I don't like what they do, so I'm not gonna play it. Isn't it just a switch to turn on for them? Pretty much. Heroic launches BattlEye mostly okay now. Okay. Yeah, like I said, it's all a developer issue. Like Apex Legends worked on Linux for years. I used to play Apex Legends on stream. And then they killed it. Much like everything EA does. But EA can also suck my... I remember they wanted you to change your bio to even play games. Wait, what? They wanted me to change my bio. Oh, your BIOS. Yeah. Yeah, they were having you go deep into your BIOS, and that's the thing, like, a lot of people are just... I think a lot of people need to understand what I've been saying, that it's a video game. You need to accept that there is no excuse for a video game to have that much of an invasive reach into your personal computer. It's one thing if it's a game console, because a game console is a dedicated piece of hardware for gaming that you're not going to use for anything else. But when you're talking about your personal computer, that this device is realistically going to have sensitive information on it. You could be using it to access your PHI, your PII, you could be doing your taxes on it, you could be, doing, the most sensitive financial things that are on there, very sensitive things. And a kernel-level anti-cheat can potentially be a backdoor for that. And don't tell me like, oh, Chief, you're being paranoid about this, when it is the reality of the situation there. That kernel-level anti-cheats have been historically used in attack chains, not directly as part of a game, but they've been co-opted as part of attack chains where people have used them to disable antivirus and stuff. Watching the hub, they can see that. Yeah, they can see what interests you have. The finals, the FPS is working perfectly fine on Linux. Okay. Crimson Desert dropped on Linux, right? You running it? I haven't really done much gaming recently. I've been so busy in the home lab. Once I finish a lot of my home lab stuff, then I'll get back into gaming. I want to finish zero trusting the home lab. The last part of the zero trust physical hardware I got is these two nodes over here. I got to set up Twin Gate. Then I already prepped the firewall side. Then I just got to lock down the pfSense rules for it. And then the logical side of the firewalls are completely done. But then after that point, it's finishing up the SIM, the security information and event monitoring, the SOAR, the security orchestration, automation and response, and the SOC, the Security Operations Center side of it. I already got the NOC finished, the Network Operations Center. So, in a few weeks, I'll have all of that stuff done. I'll have content covering all of that, but it's not going to be a single video. It's going to be multiple videos, most likely, because there's a lot. I did get the first piece out, which was Unify Polar. That is out on YouTube already. I will be talking about pfSense SimStack, which I kind of teased. I technically have that part done. The next part is getting Waza into it, and then getting N8N set up with it for automations, getting, right now I'm getting all the Discord alerts cleaned up and correlated, and then I'll be building in the matrix alerts for that. I'm going to see if I can get Signal working with that. Just as a way to alert me. And how long do you watch and at what times? Yeah, probably. But yeah, so there's still a lot that I'm doing in the home lab. And then work-wise, I've been doing some pretty cool things. So, hold on. I can show this image, because it's a generic image. There's nothing, specific going on here. So this is kind of what I've been doing at work. Okay, that's kind of a cruddy image. I'll have to show it on through Discord over here. But there's nothing specific here. It's all generic. These are the same concepts I would basically tell you anyway. Same terms. There's no specific products. Nothing, specific. But this is an entire CI/CD pipeline I'm basically mapping out for the company as a high level. This is missing like probably 40% of the specifics that I've added within the past few days. But you can at least get a high level of what you would want in most of your DevSecOps, DevOps for your business. So it starts off with the developer does a push or a pull request, branch policy commit rules, pull request checks in a merge gate, checks against the threat model review checkpoint with the pull request review, and it verifies threat model and coverage. Over here, there's just all different ways that it'll tie in, but it'll do a scorecard, license compliance, static application security testing with CodeQL, and checkout and build, unit integration tests, secret scanning to make sure there's nothing hard-coded, infrastructure as code policy scan for Terraform, Kubernetes, a container image scan, build an artifact image scan. Basically, we're going to make sure that the, so like Shai Hulud, that thing that happened a few months ago where people were, worming their way through different libraries, the way you prevent that is you actually set up artifacting. So artifacting and proxying, so when your developers actually go to build software repository, build libraries and packages, they grab it from a company repo that has approved software already checked and approved, so those versions are basically safe and, contained rather than just pulling from the latest version, and then it could be the, not good. Generates a service, a bill of materials. It'll sign, the co-signs a thing in GitHub you can use to basically just sign the packages and create an SLSA. You can have a OIDC tie into ephemeral credentials for the CI runners. You want secrets vault integration with auto rotation and revocation triggers. Yeah, there's just a lot going into here. So as you can see, there's 4 different swim lanes. You've got the developer and SCM, CI security validation, unified vulnerability management and ticketing, and you've got the deployment and runtime. So there's 4 different stacks basically here. So like over here, so that would be, okay, your developers do the thing. Now this is the CI stack. This would be mostly automated. This is where a human might get involved over here. Okay, so now we have a vulnerability going in, and then we can do a risk, let's see, it gets ingested into the unified vulnerability management. You normalize and duplicate the findings. You contextualize it by asset exposure, so if it's internet facing, data sensitivity, runtime reachability. So like, for example, everybody talks about like, oh, you gotta go after the critical CVEs. Well, if you have a CVE of like 9, and that is in an air-gapped environment, but then you have a CVE of 7, and that's an internet-facing one, the CVE of 7 is actually a higher priority than the CVE of 9 contextually, if that makes sense. I'm oversimplifying it. But you get the point. And then, risk scoring, prioritization, business criticality, and that's where a policy decision would come down. You might have a human involved in there, but at that point, a JIRA ticket would be created, assigned the ticket out. SLAs are then created, exception workflow if it's needed with an approval. If there's an escalation needed, it'd be escalated by that path. Compliance frameworks, all of that stuff. And then ultimately, when you have the deployment going, you have your signed image, verifying signature, deploying to dev staging, DAST and API security tests. You want a canary deployment, basically just deploy on a few production servers. You don't deploy to everything all at once, see how it goes. You don't roll out to everything. And then you do your runtime and internet infrastructure as code, drift monitoring. And if there's a failure, auto rollback, and then it would kick back into a JIRA ticket over here. But yeah, basically, that's a high level of what I've been working on this month at work. Now, of course, like I said, that's just the generic version. I'm missing like 40% of all the things that I've actually put specifically in there, because that would be company-specific stuff that I'm not going to reveal. But yeah, doing things that have already been done for decades. Only a decade. And a lot of businesses still don't have this shit. So if you think that all businesses have this, welcome to the world of enterprise, and you haven't really worked much in it. So, sit down. I'm learning 15 learning cybersecurity so I can go into the Navy as a cyber warfare tech. Well, good luck to you on that. Interesting choice for the Navy. I know quite a few people that are in the Navy. Most people I know that go into cybersecurity in the military tend to go Air Force. It's not necessary for most enterprises, and anyone that needs it already has it. Not true! A lot of businesses that need it don't actually already have it. Because a lot of the businesses that need it don't know they need it until it's too late. So sit down. Some of us have actually worked in businesses for a while where we actually come in and it's like, oh yeah, they don't realize till it's too little too late, or you come in and you realize what a mess other people left behind. Or sometimes businesses run so slow behind just because of different reasons, especially heavily compliant businesses. Yeah, businesses are decades behind sometimes. Absolutely. Like, I've walked into businesses that have still not even done what I would consider extremely basic, even at a small office, home office level. There are businesses that have literally I've walked into enterprises that have still been running on like 1990s networking equipment. I shit you not. You're gonna have complexity they don't need and don't have funds to maintain. There's a lot of businesses that have the funds to maintain it, but didn't want to spend the money until they didn't realize it cost them more not to do it. And then production got held up because suddenly there was a security issue. Something you come to understand in tech, if it works, it works. Something you come to understand in cybersecurity is that that's not really the answer, because there's this thing called ransomware. There's people exploiting existing tech all the time because people don't want to upgrade things. So, like I said, sit down. Some of the experts are here talking. We're talking about just various different things. What's your opinion on Claude Opus 4.6 security plugin? I think Claude Opus is interesting. I haven't played with their security plugin. I think a lot of people have been overhyping a lot of the security stuff that they have happening. Because a lot of the, if we're talking about Claude Code security, it's not really anything new or revolutionary. It's more or less a new tool in the arsenal and the tool bucket for us to use. So, but yeah. I'll say AI slop implementations of automations on top of antiquated workflows is just hellfire. Yeah, there's a lot of developers that really don't know what the hell they're talking about that end up throwing gasoline to the fire that have created a lot more work for us. So when people are like, well, you know, we don't need security, and like everybody and people come into the chat and they're like, well, businesses that, you know, need this already have it in place. You'd be surprised how stupid a lot of developers are when it comes to security. Like, a lot of fundamental, basic security stuff they're not following. I'm dealing with developers that are still hard-coding credentials. I literally am doing passes in code, just with one of the scans we have, and they're hard-coding secrets, API keys, passwords, and some of these passwords are not even that sophisticated, and they're not rotating the secrets either. How do you handle DAS scan usually? So, there's a few ways to handle it. There's the, what is it? OWASP Zap is an open source one, but it also depends on the company you walk into, because sometimes they already have a vendor they kind of are already in bed with different things. So, like, Qualys, I think, has their, web app scanner that can do API scanning and stuff like that. There's quite a few open source tools out there that are plenty capable. The issue, though, with open source tools, and I'm not poo-pooing them by any means, is that it is one more tool that the security team then becomes responsible for maintaining, not just operating. So the reason why a lot of businesses want to move more towards vendors to handle those things, and a lot of people are like, well, just run your own infrastructure, because if the infrastructure has issues, then you're responsible for the infrastructure. Whereas you have to handle now, okay, there's security updates, there's regular system updates, you have to maintain the performance and everything going on with that, whereas now you just have to handle the day-to-day pipelines. The rules, the policies, the IAM side of it. I put them on a passwords.txt. I hate you. Yeah, one of my first issues was you adopted LLMs you don't own without scanning your input data. Yeah, LLMs have become a big problem as well because a lot of people are hosting LLMs wanting them to use as chat agents without really much security. I know a friend that actually popped the Chipotle chatbot. Got it to spit out a whole bunch of BOGO coupons and deals. And got it to literally turn around and use it like ChatGPT. Had it doing math homework for him, basically. There's not a lot of guardrails around these LLMs, even on these major enterprises. And we went over this in another video where this is not uncommon that people have been popping these LLM chatbots and getting them to give like extreme discount coupons or was it Verizon? I could be mistaken. There was a big company that had a breach where they actually convinced the LLM to hand over customer information. Snapchat's LLM was like that at first. It was wild. Really? See, I don't use Snapchat, so I guess that makes sense. Oh. Yeah, one of my first issues was you said that. Been walking around my local area with my Ray Hunter, seems okay. Yeah, so the thing is, the Ray Hunter is a useful tool to detect if there are potential IMSI catchers, colloquially known as stingrays. But they're mostly deployed in protests and gatherings and stuff like that. So what are the plans for tonight? Well, we got some videos to go and review on the stream. I know I gotta do some gaming on Linux stuff. I just haven't decided what games I really want to go through. I was thinking like RDR2 at some point. Because like, here's the thing. If I do gaming on Linux, I kind of want to pick a game to like really go through and complete. I don't have the finals. I have enough games. Like, seriously, I have enough games right now that I really want to avoid buying another game. If I can avoid it. Like, I still gotta beat Cyberpunk 2077, Clair Obscure Expedition 33, Borderlands 4, we could redo Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. Still have never beat that game as many times as I've played it. Last Man Sitting. Oh yeah, that demo. We definitely have to play that at some point. I still gotta finish Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. Got Mirror's Edge, Nier Automata, Path of Exile 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, as I mentioned. We got quite a few games. Like, to give you an idea here, I'll bring up my, screen so you can see, just what my library looks like. This is my library, okay? We have tons of games here. Like, I've beaten the BioShock games, okay? But, like, I still haven't beaten Borderlands 2, 3, or 4. I still have Control, haven't beaten that. Cyberpunk, haven't beaten that. Of course, I've beaten Diablo and Deus Ex. I haven't beaten Doom Eternal or Dark Ages. Still haven't played Elden Ring, period, but I feel like I'm gonna punch my screen, according to what people tell me, even though I have it. Fallout 4, same story. Yeah, we got a lot of games in here. And that's not counting the things I still gotta redeem from Humble Bundle. That has been going for months. Thank you, Ray Rays. I integrated my virus total on ClamAV. It seems it doesn't want to start or enable ClamAV daemon. So virus total, when you have the API, only allows you to do 500 per day on a personal key, if I recall. Because I have it integrated into Wazza, and I had to set up caching. So, yeah. Did that last night. I forgot to remove my Telegram bot token from my GitHub. Oof. Rip. Yeah, that's why I use Doppler Secrets Manager. See, Kara? I've only talked about Doppler, like, how many months now? And all those secrets managers? So what I do is I make a .env file, and at worst, I just point it to my secrets manager, and then I .gitignore the .env. And then, whenever I need to change the key, boom. The finals is free? Okay, let me see. So what is the finals? Oh. It's basically, what, like an Overwatch kind of game, I guess? It's just Doppler.com. Kara. I have videos on YouTube talking about it a lot. I have been sponsored by them in the past, but that's after I've used Doppler for many months. Like, I straight up love it. They have a free plan. They have a free plan. You can do up to 10 projects for free, and I haven't run into secrets limits with them. 3 versus 3 FPS game. Okay. Wheel of Fortune, the games. Yep, Doppler.com, that's it. So hold on. The finals. Is it under F for finals or T for the finals? That's the question. Oh, here we are. Damn, 71 gigabytes for this shit? You remember when, like, installing a game used to be like 4 gigabytes? Why do these games, like, require that much space? I don't understand this shit. Alright, let's see. It's downloading the data. That's gonna... The finals runs great on my Steam Deck. I mean, it'll probably run great on this computer, but like 71 gigabytes? Just such a large amount of data. Why don't you ask Epic Games that question? Well... Wait, is Epic the one that was behind Borderlands, or am I thinking of somebody else? Because Borderlands 4, that game was royally fucked up for how unoptimized the game was. Like, there is no reason a game like that performed that poorly on a 3070 with 1080p graphics. Like, my 5070 Ti should not have been the answer for me to have had decent Borderlands performance. It's not a very demanding visually game. That's just what I'm getting at there. I don't know. But yeah, it's gonna take a minute, so I probably won't be able to get that done tonight. But maybe for Sunday, we'll play with that. Okay, so where were we here anyway? Epic Games makes the Unreal Engine and AAA uses it. Oh, Epic makes the Unreal Engine and then everybody, uses it and then doesn't optimize shit for it. Gotcha. Alright. I guess, since we're downloading the finals and stuff, we can at least get into this. Alright, so... Vampire had Werewolf V-Flex review, power almost anything through USB-C. I thought you could power almost anything through USB-C. Is there more to this that I'm missing? So this is from Lawn.tv. We followed him a lot for various over-the-air TV technology things. So let's see what he's got.
Hey everybody, it's Lonside. We've got something fun and useful to check out today. This is a little device from Werewolf. It's called the V-Flex, and what it lets you do is turn any USB power supply, like this battery, or something you might plug into
V-Flex is good, V-Shred is not.
Universal power supply. So what I'm going to do here is connect up the V-Flex adapter to this battery. You can see it's lighting up green. I've got the right adapter installed on here, and I'm going to power an 80s vintage Atari 2600 using this USB-C battery. So if we flick the switch here, look at that. It's providing the proper voltage, and we are powering this Atari 2600 with this battery, but you could very easily use a smaller adapter like this for the wall or anything else that can
that's
deliver
handy.
USB power. These are all programmable, so you can find the right voltage for your device, and they've got lots of adapters that go with them as well. So you can get everything up and running and turn any USB power supply into a universal one. This one's a lot of fun. You got to be careful with it, and we'll talk about that as we're working our way through the review here, but I think this might be useful to a lot of you. Now,
I wonder how it works with the polarity, because there's some that are center positive, center negative.
It's not very expensive. However, they did not review or approve what you're about to see before.
I used to have a bunch before a flood.
All opinions are my own, and this is not a sponsored review. So let's get into it now and check out what these Werewolf devices are all about. Now, the price point on this is pretty reasonable. The base unit here is $8. This is what connects to your USB power source, and then you have to connect one of the power adapter cables to the base unit to plug it into the device that you're trying to power.
Nice.
They do have a starter kit here that's $48. It includes 3 base units along with cables for most popular devices here. Most of them, as you can see,
that's actually not too bad of a price.
That in a minute, but of course you can buy other adapter cables here. I do think they might be open to making different types of cables. I did send them a request for that Atari 2600 cable, and they were able to make it for me. This is a very small company, so I think there's some flexibility if you need it. And they also have an adapter cable that lets you make your own cables as well.
Oh!
So you've got some options here, but again, not all that expensive here to get started. Now, there is some configuration of these little base units. So what you do is plug it into a computer or a phone or a tablet. They have apps for Android and iOS, and then there's a web version, which I have up on my screen here, that will work with a computer. And when you connect it up, what you have to do is tell the device here what voltage you need. And that's where things can get a little dangerous, and you have to be very careful about making sure you're dialing in the correct voltage. This is no different, though, than maybe one of those universal.
So how do you know which is set to what? Because they all look alike.
Dial in the voltage. So in order to figure out what you need, the best thing you can do is look at the power adapter. So for example, the Atari that I just plugged into earlier, on its power adapter, it tells you everything that you need. 9 volts DC. So if we go back to our screen here and just dial in 9 volts, the unit here will be programmed to do 9 volts of power when we boot it up next. And that will make the request of the power source to supply 9 volts, and then it will power the Atari. One other thing to note, though, is that you need to make sure the polarity is correct on the adapter.
That was my question.
So for example, in the case of the Atari here, as you can see, the plus sign here on the right coming
center
out
positive.
Of that, center thing with the open circle, that indicates that this is a center positive power supply, and that is the polarity of the adapter that we need. And when you're shopping for the adapters on the Werewolf site, it'll tell you whether it is center positive or center negative.
Okay.
That's really important. So both the voltage and the polarity.
So it's not like you can just flip them. They're going to be individual.
Okay. These devices may not be able to stop you from frying your electronics if you configure them incorrectly. So just do your homework and make sure you've got everything dialed in before.
If you're not careful, you make magic blue smoke escape box.
You set up everything. But now that you have your voltage dialed in, it will remember that voltage setting inside of the little base unit here. So if I plug this into a power source, what will happen is we'll get a light to indicate whether or not we're getting the proper voltage. Let me show you what that looks like. All right, so we programmed this for 9 volts. I've got my USB power source here. If I connect this up, you will see it light up and then turn green.
I did that,
and that indicates it's getting 9 volts. If it isn't able to get 9 volts, it will light up red.
Okay.
And I do believe that it will cut power to whatever is connected. But again, you really need to be careful when you get all this.
See, the thing that worries me, though, about this is because they all look alike, how does one know which one is programmed for which? Like, you're going to basically have to nail polish them. Like, you know, like get a bottle of nail polish and mark them. And if you haven't done that, you should definitely consider doing that. I've never put nail polish on my fingers other than clear nail polish, but you go to the, you know, like Sally's Beauty or whatever those, you know, girl beauty shops, whatever, go to the clearance aisle, buy a few colors. They're great to mark your electronics with. They last. But I think that's what you would have to do in this case, because you're not going to know what you set each voltage to, but then you can be like, Blue sparkly one is 9.5 volts last I set it to.
Stuff.
Print out tape tags. See, now you're just thinking too rational.
Going. And then once everything is programmed, you just pick out the appropriate adapter and slide it into the base unit. They can only go in one way. You can see
okay, that was my
like
question.
here. And so all you do is just snap it into place, and then you can plug in the barrel connector to your device that needs to be powered. Now, as far as USB power sources are concerned, there are some things to know on that end as well. So why don't we take a look at what you need to look for. So for example, on my little Anker 30-watt power supply here, there's a bunch of text on the back that my 49-year-old eyes can't see very well anymore, but you can take a picture of it. And this should give you some ideas to what the capabilities are here. So this little power supply can deliver 5 volts, 9 volts, 15 volts, or 20 volts. But this one also has some new modern features, one of them called PPS, and this allows you to more granularly dial in the voltage. So for example, I could dial in any voltage between 3.3 volts and 11 volts and get 3 amps. I can also dial in between 3.3 and 16 volts and get 2 amps, and those are settings that you can do
How's it going,
inside of that web interface. So if you do have a device that's got some weird voltage requirement, if you have a PPS power supply like this, you can dial it in and get it. But not all power supplies have PPS. So for example, this older Kensington power supply can deliver 100 watts of power, but it doesn't support PPS. So here I can only do 5, 9, 15, or 20 volts. And then, of course, you have to think about the USB-C cable that you're using.
So it doesn't have step up or step down properly. It's more just negotiating with the charger. Gotcha.
There is a helpful guide on the Werewolf site to guide you as to what cables you should be looking for. Now, I'm finding some cables are labeling their capabilities on the connector, like this USB 4 cable here. But just because they can print capabilities on a connector doesn't mean they're meeting the standard. So you definitely need to be careful, not only with the power supply, but also with the cable. Werewolf does sell power supplies and cables that they have tested with their product, which are going to be safer to use than something you might have hanging around in your basket full of wires that we all have sitting around our house. My recommendation is to stick to the name.
You have a basket? I have bins. Not even joking. I have like 2 bins of cables that I'm afraid to throw out because I know if I throw them out, I'm going to need to use the cable that I threw out. You know exactly what I'm talking about, chat.
Brands both for power supplies but also for cables. So Kensington, for example, is a good brand. Anker is a good brand. And also look for cables that are made by name brands as well, just so you can have some peace of mind when you're plugging all of this stuff in. There's a lot of convenience that comes from using a USB-C universal power supply, but there are some risks here as well, given how wild the standard is and how some companies just don't meet it because they are just selling the cheapest cable they can get out onto the market. So buyer beware, be cautious, but if you are looking for flexible power delivery options, this is a fun thing.
Hold up, does he have a Blockbuster? Yeah, he has a Blockbuster thing in the background there. Sir, the late fee on that is going to be incredibly high. You should probably return that.
To play around with. I've got one more thing to show you here. You know what we're going to do? We're going to hook up a Sega Tower of Power to this Anker power
Holy shit, a Tower of Power. I haven't thought about that in a minute.
Console. Let's see if we can get it all working through this one little power supply here. All right, the Tower of Power is assembled here. I've got my Sega CD.
I haven't touched one of those in years. I used to have one.
Note, the Sega CD here uses a 9-volt power supply, but the 32X and the second generation Genesis use 10-volt power supplies. So I've programmed in 2 of the V-Flex adapters at 10 volts, 1 at 9, and connected them all up to the appropriate device here. And the power supply we're using here is that Anker Prime. And so this does support PPS, so it can get 10 volts out to those 2 devices that need 10 and 9 to the one that needs 9. And what I'm going to do here before I fire everything up is pull up the real-time data from the power adapter. It's got this great feature that delivers a power meter to your phone over Bluetooth. And as you can see, we're at 9.9 volts on C1, 10 on C2, and 9 on C3. And why don't we power things up here and see what happens. And it looks like
a universal power adapter.
Exploded. and I can hit the start button here and
You
start
can
loading
adjust
from
the
CD.
voltage
What I'm
on
playing here
anything.
is a Sega 32X game off the CD, so we're going to make use of the whole stack here. And you can see the power draw. We're about 10 watts right now as everything is booting up. And it all seems to be working just fine. We've got the voltages now dialed in, so C1 and 2 are at 10 volts each, and C3 is at 9 volts. And this is delivering the power that this system needs right now. And the total capacity of this power adapter is 160 watts, so we're barely scratching the surface of what it can deliver. But we're able to provide clean and useful power here over USB to all of this stuff with a single power adapter versus having those 3 large ones that they required you to use back.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Stuff here, it seems to be working.
You needed a surge
now,
strip
Werewolf
just to
has
do
some good
this.
documentation on their website, so definitely check that out. And overall, I found it to be a very useful device to have in my toolbox here because I've got all sorts of stuff that I need to plug in from time to time, and I can't always find the power adapter. So now I can just dial in what that device needs. I've got plenty of adapters here that came with my starter kit, and I should be good to go for most of what I need to power. You just need to be careful because you are dealing, of course, with the USB standard here, which can be all over the place, but when things are properly configured, as you saw with the Atari and the Sega, things can work really well using modern USB-C power sources. Just be careful with these. You want to make sure that you're checking the voltage before you plug it into a new device because it's very easy to fry something if you've got the voltage set incorrectly before you plug something in. But if you know what you're doing, I think you will find this to be a very useful product that lets you use all of your fun USB power sources.
Nice little kit. I might think about getting one.
That will do it for this one. Until next time, this is Lon Seidman. Thanks for watching.
All right. Your own personal cable TV system. I think we've seen a video that was like similar to this, where somebody actually set up a streaming system on a server, where they were running their own like TV station. So we'll see how this is. Oh, by the way, the finals did install, so we might be playing that a little bit later tonight.
Out of the pool for Adult Swim.
Adult Swim, yeah!
Kids out.
$1 million champion. Everybody's got a prize. The Ringmaster.
I don't know why you would want the Weather Channel.
Remember getting sucked into watching the Weather Channel for hours? Or watching the preview channel
IPTV, yeah, that was it.
For your channel to come back around? Then channel surfing until you accidentally landed on something unexpected and amazing? TV used to hit different, before streaming fractured everything into 1,000 services, before algorithms decided what you'd watch next. There was...
To be fair, back in the day, I feel like TV shows actually were better. Like, I feel like the TV shows we have today that you go on streaming services and everything, they just kind of throw whatever they can at the wall to make it stick. It doesn't hit as well as it used to. Like, let me put it this way. I'm not a fan of Friends, okay? I feel like Friends, the TV show, is still better than a lot of the slop we get today. And network TV still ends up having better TV shows than a lot of the streaming services did. Which is weird, because Netflix used to hit it out of the park, and then I don't know what happened.
Something about just turning on the TV and seeing what was on. You'd stumble in.
Not the mama, not the mama, not the mama, yeah.
Build actual routines around programming blocks.
Reboot! Oh no,
It wasn't
Toonami!
always good television, but it was ours. Wouldn't you like to recreate that golden age?
It's called a
A
time
while
machine.
back, I set out to create a simulator called Field Station 42. It's a way to recreate the broadcasting cable television experiences you remember, but using your own media.
Also, great taste in cigars. I like Macanudo too. Good Jamaican cigars. Wait. Looks like he had the Nicaraguan ones. Huh.
I made a couple of videos about it. The
Macanudo, I
first
thought
was
you were
about a
Jamaican.
broadcast simulator for 70s and 80s style TV. I built it in a cigar box using a Raspberry Pi and an old school antenna tuner to change the channel. In the second, I designed and 3D printed a replica cable box, dropped a Raspberry Pi inside, and configured it to replicate 90s style cable.
So it's a
Both
Pi
of those
5.
builds used a Raspberry Pi, but Field Station 42 doesn't require one. It runs on anything that runs Linux. Mini PCs, desktop, computers, whatever you've got.
Okay.
It's written in Python, and it's fully open source, so anyone can use or modify it however they like.
I like Python.
Since then, the community has really run with it. People have built it into actual vintage cable boxes running on old CRTs, custom enclosures running on modern flat-screen TVs, all kinds of things. It's a maker project at heart, and the whole point is that you decide what kind of system you want. Any time period, any channel types, whatever look and feel works for you. The motto is, Field Station 42, it's up to you. And honestly, the community has taken that further than I ever imagined. In this video, we'll cover 3 things. First, I'll show you what Field Station 42 can do today. The features have grown a lot since those early videos. Second, I'll give you a speed run through installation and setup. Not a deep tutorial, just enough to show you what it feels like to get a couple of channels up and running. And finally, I'll show you how I built this mini TV and then configured it to replicate an era of television from before I was even born, as another example of what this project is capable of.
Watch old sci-fi anime. It's interesting to see what their version of 2000
The system runs on any Linux machine, from a Raspberry Pi to a full PC, and generates realistic schedules complete with commercials, station bumps, and even sign-offs at 3 a.m.
Zenith TVs, I remember those.
Let me walk you through what makes this special. There's an on-screen display. When you change channels, you get that authentic OSD showing the channel number and network name, completely customizable. Position, fonts, the work. There are screen bugs too. You can even set different bugs for different times of the day or for specific shows. It supports multiple channel types. Traditional network channels with commercials interspersed throughout the shows. Commercial-free premium channels like HBO that just use bumps between programs. Loop channels for community bulletins or information displays. Even streaming channels that pull live web streams. You can set up pay-per-view type channels that let you watch videos on demand. It'll pull movie details from the movie database. There's even radio channels that display album art and track information from the MP3 files. Then there's a programmable guide channel. Remember waiting for your channel to scroll around? You can have a fully customizable preview channel with embedded images, rotating messages, and real-time schedule information. It looks exactly like those old cable channel guides, right down to the blue gradient background and slightly too small font. Don't forget.
You know, I was thinking about building like a 20 or 40 terabyte NAS eventually. I know what 10 terabytes is probably going to be.
About the weather channel. It's easy to set up your own customized weather channel with live updates using the WeatherStar 4000 simulator. This is live actual weather, and you can put whatever background music you want. It'll suck you in for hours if you're not careful.
Interesting! So it's actual weather channel, but your weather channel.
This is where it gets clever. The scheduler automatically arranges your content into realistic programming blocks. It knows that shows should end on 30-minute boundaries, that you need commercials and bumps to fill the gaps, and that different times of the day calls for different contents. You can specify cartoons at 7 a.m. on Saturdays or news at 6 p.m. on weekdays, and it handles the rest. You can configure sequential playback. Want your Star Trek episodes to play in order instead of randomly? Just tag them with a sequence name. The system tracks where you left off and picks up the next episode when that time slot comes around again. There are slot overrides. Here's where you can get really specific. Different commercials for kids programming versus late at night, different bumps for your Adult Swim blocks, even schedule increments. Set Adult Swim for 15-minute blocks and everything else in 30-minute blocks. The system even features automatically generated bumps that show you what's coming up next.
That's interesting.
It supports seasonal content. Name a folder October and that content only plays in October. December for your holiday specials. The system automatically knows to pull those episodes during the right season. This is also great to make sure sporting events play at the right time of the year. Stations can sign off at night with the national anthem video and display past patterns till
I remember when that was a thing.
And play infomercials overnight. Your choice. There's a web console and REST
That old
API.
sci-fi animes where we were
Manage your entire station through a web interface. View schedules, check system status, and control playback. Or build your own tools using the comprehensive REST API. The web console also comes with a web-based remote. Control everything from your phone or any device on your network. The really cool part is you can configure a real remote using an IRC device. You got news tickers and alerts. You can trigger breaking news alerts and crawling tickers via the API or from the web console. Perfect for adding the extra layer of authenticity or just messing with your friends. The entire system is configuration driven, every aspect from commercial frequency to break strategies, from bump padding to schedule increments.
So I could actually make my own MTV. I want my MTV.
It's all in JSON files you can tweak to your heart's content. Since launch, the community has built some incredible stuff. Retro cable boxes with physical buttons, mini CRT builds with embedded PIs, custom remote controls. The project is open source and actively developed, with new features dropping regularly. So that's Field Station 42, your own personal broadcast system using the media you already have.
Field Station 42 is what it's called.
Undertaker has waited nearly a year to finally get his hand.
Hold on, I'm just seeing GitHubs here. Just gonna remember to start. They have a few GitHubs here. Oh, they have a few GitHubs here. The cable box, 3D printable cable box, the mini TV, and then they have the Field Station 42 wiki. Okay. So I'm gonna move that over there with that, and then we'll get back to the video over here. Wait, nope. No.
Hands on the world champion.
Well, Edge has done a remarkable job over the last few months of
Wait, that's Reboot.
Okay, now that you know what it can do, let's walk through a simple setup, and along the way, I'll show you how I made this mini TV. This won't be a comprehensive guide to everything Field Station 42 can do, but enough to get you started on a few basic stations and give you a taste of what it's like to work with. Installing Field Station 42 doesn't require programming skills, but you will need to work with Linux, which isn't that difficult these days, and learn a little bit about configuring with JSON if you don't already know it.
Oh, was that Beast Wars? Thought it was Reboot.
We'll break it into 4 easy
That
steps.
animation.
Field Station 42 has fairly comprehensive documentation on its GitHub wiki, so we'll work directly from that. Step 1. Installation. First thing to do is get your operating system ready. FS42 will run on any Linux distro, including WSL on Windows, and today we're going to install it on Linux Mint and a Raspberry Pi. We'll follow the wiki on GitHub to get it installed.
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward looking at
So
this.
we'll make sure the operating system is all up to date, and then install the only major dependency, the MPV movie player. MPV is an FFmpeg-based movie player that FS42 uses to render video streams.
Okay, pretty straightforward. Used that before.
Now we'll create the FS42 repo. This step downloads all the code and supporting files to your local hard drive.
Straight
You'll
up
see a
git
new
clone.
folder created called Field Station 42. Let's change into that folder and it becomes our main workspace for running FS42.
Right, simple git flow.
Note that I'm just copying commands directly from the wiki, nothing too difficult. From here, we'll run the install script. It doesn't ask for input and handles downloading and installing dependencies and getting your environment up and
Yeah, pretty straightforward install script. You know, just running that, installing the modules. Okay, yeah, just there's a wiki. Yeah, okay, pretty straightforward.
running.
Yeah, just grabbing the dependencies.
An important note, FieldStation 42 has quite a few Python dependencies, but to keep everything secure and so that it plays nicely with immutable distros, it will install all the dependencies into a virtual environment. This means that you need to activate that virtual environment before you run it. We'll do that now. And that's all there is to the install. Let's move on.
That's common practice as well. You want to usually do things in a virtual environment.
Step 2, organizing your media content. I always suggest people start with just one channel and get that working before adding more. So we'll start off with a standard network type channel.
So it's funny that you mentioned why hasn't he clotted. So if you look at the documentation, there's a few emojis here. It's definitely been clotted. But like I tell people, vibe coding's not that bad if you know what you're doing. Like I use Claude and stuff. Seems like a pretty sound project when I was looking through it. Oh wait, they have it Dockerized. They have a Docker in here. Let me check the Docker. Oh, yeah. You can run it as a Docker. Nice. Cool.
FS42 makes use of the file station for how it schedules programs, and it's very flexible. That means that you set up your files in folders that represent the way you want them played. For example, maybe you want to set up your folders by time of day you will want them to play, or you could set them up by the genre of content. You could even set them up as specific shows, or any mix of the above. In a lot of scenarios, people will already have their content organized and won't want to move it around like this. Maybe it's already on a media server, an external or network drive. You can simply use symbolic links to make the file system believe they live inside the channel's content.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You can just do an NFS share, symbolic.
So let's get started on this. I've downloaded a bunch of old public domain videos. I'll create some folders and organize the videos in a way that makes sense to me. It's a combination of genres and specific shows. Where I had multiple episodes of the same show, I created specific folders for them. For other content, I'll put it together as genres. So I made the folders I wanted with the genres I want, and then I start moving the videos into the folder I want them in. This is Rue. He'll be helping me out for the rest of this project. Rue's a good boy. We need commercials, so I got a bunch of old commercials for defunct products, stuff that isn't made anymore, and put them inside of a folder named Commercials. I made some bumps for the channel, and I'll put them in a folder named Bumps. Now we have the media together. We need to make sure it's available in FieldStation 42's catalog folder so it knows where to look for it. If your media is on a different drive, you can do that by making a symbolic link to it. Step 3. Configuring the station. Okay, now that we have our media sorted inside the catalog folder, it's time to configure the channel to use it. For this, we'll use the web UI. Station42.py is the program that we use to configure, so we'll start that up. It kicks off a web server, so we can visit the URL at localhost on port 4242 to configure.
Okay.
Here's the dashboard. We don't have anything configured yet, so there's really nothing to see right now. Let's go to the Stations tab and select Create New Station, which shows us a set of station types to pick from. Let's select Standard Channel Type. This takes us to a JSON editor where we can start filling in the details. Let's give our station a name and pick a channel number. Then,
I just moved the damn cat out of the way.
The public domain folder we just linked under Catalog. Commercial dir and bump dir are relative to the content dir, so we'll just put those names in there. Now it's time to actually set up our schedule, picking what we want to play in a specific time slot. Each time slot's tag is really just a folder name from our station's content, so I'll pick what to play in each slot by entering the name of the corresponding folder. And that's it. We've configured our station. Step 4. Build the catalog and schedule. Now it's time to build the catalog and the schedule. Let's go to the Catalog tab and select Rebuild Catalog. That was a successful build. So now we'll go to the Schedule tab and select Add Time. Since month is selected, that will finish out the month for us. It failed with a message that said it couldn't find content for the Western time slot. Let's have a look at that. You can see that the folder is there and it has content inside of it. This is interesting, but as Rue and I start digging a little deeper to see what's going on, I see that the problem is the folder's name actually has a space after Western. I'll just remove that space and try again. You have to remember to rebuild the catalog when you change your tags or folder names.
That's a little bit tedious, but okay.
It failed again, this time with a message that said it couldn't find content for the cartoon tag. This is an easy one. The folder is actually named Cartoons with an S. I'll update that in the configuration and try again. Now it worked. Let's look at the guide channel and see if we have a schedule. We do indeed. That's it. We have a working channel. Let's build one more type of channel. This one is going to be a loop channel. I downloaded a bunch of public domain newsreels and we'll have them play in a loop on a channel. So here's the collection.
Yeah, it does seem a little bit
Let's have a look at one of
tedious.
them. Looks good, should work well. I'll make a link to the folder inside of the Field Station 42 catalog and we're ready to get started. We'll go to the Station tab and pick Create New Station again, but this time we'll pick a loop type station. You can see the template is different now because loop stations don't have time slots. We'll give it a name, pick a channel number, tell it what content dir to use, and that's all we have to do. Now we just need to build the catalog again. That worked, so now we'll build the schedules again. That worked too, so let's check the guide tab and see if both channels are up. That's how easy it was to build two channels. We could just play them right here on this computer, but I promise it won't look good in 4K with these low-res videos. So let's build something fun to play it on. My goal is to build a mini TV that looks like an old retro TV.
Right.
I looked at a lot of examples for inspiration, but knew this cool red one was the one I wanted to base it on as soon as I saw it. It's beautiful. I'll use a Raspberry Pi to power it since I have a few of them around.
The Pi 5.
I also have a small screen that I can use for a display. Rue likes it. I'll also use some rotary encoders that have push buttons for the channel and volume selectors. With that in mind, it's time to design the case. I'm using Cadoodle, an open source 3D modeling tool to design it. I have a bit of help from my little buddy Rue, too.
Never heard of
What
that
a cool
one.
partner. He has opinions about stuff. After I get it designed, I 3D printed the pieces and now it's ready to put together. Let's do a quick montage of building this thing.
I would have probably done heat set inserts instead of just super gluing, but I guess 6 dozen the other. What, no heat shrink on those connectors? Maybe I'm just a little bit anal. Really?
Here it is all put together.
Nice looking
I don't
box.
think it came out too bad. It captures the spirit of what I was looking for. I'll move the channels we configured over here, and then I'll add a few more channels and a guide. Since this is a custom setup, I get to write a little script to get the channel change commands and pass them on to FS42's API. You don't have to code to make the system work in a normal setup, but if you want to extend it, you can completely control the system through the API. Users have written Discord bots, custom printed guides, and all sorts of cool tools with it. This script lets me
Have
use
an
the
entire
knobs to
channel
change
of
the
Dragon
channel
Ball
and
Z
volume.
and other
I can
Stargate
use the push button
SG-1.
controls to turn the system on
I
and off.
totally do that.
I'll use the web console and add a guide channel. Since most videos are in black and white, I'll configure the channel's look and feel to use gray tones. I'll also change the images and messages to match. This is emulating an old TV setup, so I'll add a couple of channels that have questionable and unstable reception. To top it off and add something a little cool, I'll add a couple of radio channels and populate them with old-timey radio broadcasts from the 30s and 40s. It's all ready now. Let's have a look at it in action. The guide channel customization makes it fit the look. The poor reception channels fit the model of anyone who lived through almost getting to see what was on a channel.
Double British News cameraman held an investigation.
Obedience, conformity, and repetition were the staples.
The radio channels are a good addition. They conjure up that old school nostalgia for a time when I wasn't even alive somehow.
Air tonic comes in handy for every member of the family.
Overall, I think it creates a fairly authentic feel, and I'm pleased with how this project's turned out.
Well, yeah, because
useful to understand
many of us grew up with TV.
Configuring your own setup. I'll put links in the descriptions. Thanks for watching.
Many of us grew up watching actual TV, so yeah, I mean, it makes sense because a lot of the like, I feel like I waste time looking at like what's on streaming and everything, whereas I would just like rewatch a lot of things. Like right now I'm just rewatching Raising Hope. I would put on a bunch of TV shows and just have that go through. Okay. So, next up in the list, OpenAI's data center canceled that massive Stargate data center that Trump was talking about, all that. It's been canceled as the firm can't reach terms with Oracle. The operator is struggling with reliability issues, and Meta may be interested in taking up the extra capacity. So, yeah. OpenAI is floundering. They are floundering. I've said for a while, I don't think OpenAI is going to succeed. I think Anthropic has been taking things in a more cautious approach, that they actually will be profitable in a few years. Or in a year or two, I forgot what the numbers are, but OpenAI not so much. But Meta and Google will remain. OpenAI not so much. Even with all those government contracts and everything. So, that's something. In other news, Instagram is ending end-to-end encryption in May. So, I don't know how many of you were aware of that. But yeah, Instagram will officially be ending end-to-end encryption. They did have an end-to-end encrypted option for a lot of people. Thought Meta wasn't end-to-end encrypted, so they did have the option for it. Facebook Messenger, when I used to use it, did have secret messenger built in that you could end-to-end encrypt your messages to someone else, but a lot of people wouldn't use it. They would go to WhatsApp for that. But WhatsApp, as we know, is not as encrypted as they led us to believe. Instagram had an end-to-end encrypted feature, and I used it in the past when I was more of a Meta user, back in the day. But now that's gonna go bye-bye! You know damn well your Insta chats will be fed into Meta AI. Oh, absolutely. That's why I was telling people for years that Signal is one of the few centralized end-to-end encrypted chats I would be okay with. Otherwise, I was telling people Matrix or PGP communications. So, yep, that's happening. And then in other news, speaking of Meta, we may have been finding out who is behind all of these age verification laws popping up out of nowhere.
Reddit user did a great.
So we've talked about this Reddit post the other day. I think we talked about this last stream. They're going to talk about the same thing. This is Deep Humor. We've seen their videos quite a bit.
piece on age verification, how it actually started, and who's actually behind it, and the answer might surprise you. So when I first saw a tweet about this,
No, it won't. It's meta. Shouldn't surprise you. It's meta.
the original link, the guy who made the Reddit post, it said it was like not available or something like that. Now it is, but I don't know what was going on there. I don't know if this post had gotten taken down in some sort of way, and it actually wouldn't surprise me based on the sensitive nature of what's being discussed here. But the post is titled, "I traced $2 billion in nonprofit grants and 45 states of lobbying records to figure out who's behind the age verification bills. The answer involves a company that profits from your data writing laws that collect more of it." So he starts off by saying, "I've been pulling records on the wave of age verification bills moving through the United States legislatures, IRS 999 findings, Senate lobbying disclosure, state ethics databases, campaign finance records, corporate registries, Whois lookups, Wayback Machine archives." This guy has done his research. What started as curiosity about who is pushing these bills turned into documenting a coordinated influence operation that, from a privacy standpoint, is building surveillance infrastructure at the operating system level, while the company behind it faces zero new requirements for its own platforms. So just for fun, let's play a little game. Here are some of the biggest social media companies in the world. Can you guys guess which company is behind this? Take a mental note over here and take one guess, and let's see if you're right by the end.
Meta. It's meta. That shouldn't shock you. It's meta.
End of the video. Actually, I'll probably put whoever it is in the thumbnail. Anyway, sorry. What the bills actually require you to hand over. Most reporting on these bills say something vague like age checks and device setup. The statutory language is more specific and more invasive than that. California AB 143, signed October 25 and effective January 1st, 2027, defines operating system provider as a person or entity that develops, licenses, or controls the operating system software on a computer, mobile device, or any other general purpose computing device. So every OS provider under that definition must then provide an interface that accounts setup collecting a birth date or age and expose a real-time API that broadcasts the user's age bracket under 13, 13 to 15, 16 to 17, 18 plus to any application running on the system.
And this also counts for calculators too.
When you provide that information to your operating system, that is the information that they're going to have. Read that again. Every app on your device gets to query a system-level API that returns your age bracket in real time. This isn't age verification at the point of accessing restricted content. This is a persistent age broadcasting service baked into the operating system itself, curable by every installed application. Think about that. I don't think people understand that. Literally any application on your computer. If you verify your age with your operating system, now they can all see that. So the Colorado one copies the same definitions in the same order, same penalty structure. So $2,500 per child for negligent violations, $7,500 for intentional ones, same exemptions. The template is ICMEC, Digital Age Assurance Act, and it has been introduced or is pending in Illinois, New York, Kansas, South Carolina, Ohio, Georgia, Florida, and even at the federal level.
Wait,
this could be nationwide soon if we don't stop this. But New York's bill is even worse. It requires device manufacturers to perform commercially reasonable and technically feasible age assurance at device activation and explicitly bans self-reporting. The AG picks the approved methods. That means biometric age estimation or government ID verification before you can use a device that you purchase. You buy some shit, you have to verify your age with an ID before you can use it. Exemptions in all of these bills cover broadband ISPs, telecom services, and physical products. None contain any exemption for open source software, non-commercial projects, or privacy-preserving verification methods. So here are the status of these terrible bills right now. The California one passed, and it will be effective January 1st. Colorado one passed and is now in the House committee. Please, House committee, do a freaking job and protect the privacy of the world. LA, it's enacted. Utah,
That's Louisiana.
it's enacted. Texas, enjoined by a federal judge, and New York, Illinois, and federal is all still pending. And, you know, good God, man, this is crazy. The commercial age...
Oh, this is about we may know which company is behind lobbying all of the age verification laws that have been popping up out of nowhere, because we've been seeing that it's been like out of nowhere. All the states, the federal government, the European countries, everybody is like suddenly lobbying for age verification just out of left field. Yeah, it may have been traced back to Meta. It may have been Meta all along. That's right. Fuck you, Zuckerberg!
Verification vendors who would provide this infrastructure charge 10 cents to $2 per check, require proprietary SDKs, and demand API keys tied to commercial accounts and operate cloud only with self-hosted option. Your age verification goes to a third-party cloud service every time. So remember when Discord and Reddit and all those bullshit ass websites that are forcing global age verification down our throats, remember what they always say? Oh, don't worry, guys. Nobody's going to get your information. It is all going to stay safe with us. Just trust us, bro. Come on. Just trust us.
Australia
And now the
behind
EU
it.
is doing their...
No, the Karens from Collective Shout happen to just be the you know, the ones that kickstarted all of this, but I guess Meta went behind it and saw, you know what? We can use this as a way to collect more data on people.
whole digital identity wallet thing where you can prove you're over 18 without revealing your birth date, name, or anything else. I think the person making the Reddit post is saying that it is better, and you know, maybe in some ways the digital identity wallet is better, but either way, it's still the same shit. It's still you having to provide all of your information just so you can use a certain website or certain social media. It's all bad. Honestly, all of these types of age verifications are bad. You should not have to hand over information to be able to use a website. Or
I agree.
I think that's freaking ridiculous. Now let's get to who actually wrote all of these bills. And like I said, the answer might surprise you. Representative Kim Carver, the sponsor of Louisiana's HB 570, publicly confirmed that a Meta lobbyist brought the legislative language directly to her. The bill as drafted required only app stores to verify ages. It did not require social media platforms to do anything. However, Meta deployed 12 lobbyists across 9 confirmed firms for this single bill, paying at least $320,000. The confirmed firms include Pelican State Partners, who also lobby for Roblox, letting Meta frame this as a broad industry support, and all
$320,000. I know that sounds like a lot of money to us, but that's pennies for Meta. $320,000. That's it?
all of these other organizations. Nicole Lopez, Meta's Director of Global Litigation Strategy for Youth, testified at the House Commerce Committee in support. She also testified in South Dakota for a similar bill. She's Meta's national point person for these laws. HB 570 passed unanimously at every stage. House 99-0, Senate 39-0. So why did Meta need 12 lobbyists? Because the votes were never the concern. The lobbyists were there to control the text and block amendments. This is something that I hinted at a video that I made a long time ago. It really does seem like Meta, the company behind Facebook, is actually the people that are behind these age verification laws getting passed. They're using their money and resources to make sure that global ID age verification is going to become a thing. The key amendment battle came from Senator Jay Morse, who expanded the bill to include app developers alongside app stores after Google's senior director of government affairs publicly questioned why, quote, Mark Zuckerberg is so keen on passing these bills. Really? Why is Mark Zuckerberg so keen on having global age verification?
Yeah, that is a...
think, right? When Morris introduced his amendment,
yeah, why, Zuckerberg, are you so keen on doing all this shit?
Meta went silent. The conference committee compromise maintained dual responsibility but kept the primary burden on app stores, which is what Meta wanted from the start. Meta wants this to only be on app stores, but when it comes to Meta, Facebook, and all their shitty ass products, they don't want to have any accountability for age verification. At the same Senate hearing, Morris directly questioned DCA Executive Director Casey Stefanski about who funds their organization. She reportedly deflected, said she wasn't comfortable answering, and then under continued pressure admitted tech companies provide funding but refused to name them. Sheesh, I wonder what tech company it was. The digital
Meta. It was Meta. Why is that a shock?
Childhood Alliance presents themselves as a coalition of 50-plus conservative child safety organizations, though only 6 have ever been publicly named. It has been testifying in favor of these bills across states. Here's what public records show about its legal status. They go into a lot of the details about the organizations involved, but Bloomberg reporters exposed Meta as a DCA founder in July 2025. No version of the
funder, not founder, but
website
yeah.
Across 100-plus Wayback Machine snapshots have ever disclosed funding sources. Every blog post and testimony targets Apple and Google. Meta is never mentioned or criticized. I think we know what's going on here now. Shout out to this person, by the way, Lingonberry3296 over here, for doing a freaking great job compiling all this information. And there's a ton of information over here, so feel free to pause the video if you want to read it. But basically, all these companies and organizations, a lot of them were actually being funded by Meta. Meta poured over $70 million in state-level super PACs and structured everyone to avoid the FEC's centralized searchable database. So in layman's terms, it is in fact Meta that is pushing hard for new age verification laws. In 2025, Meta spent a record $26 million on lobbying in Washington and employed more than 86 lobbyists in 45 states. They also
$26 million, that's all it cost. Again, I know that sounds like a lot of money to you, but they made billions.
tightly fund a group called the DCA that appears to be a concerned parent organization but supports these same rules. A large review of nearly $2 billion in grants from the Arabella Advisors Network found $0 going to actual child safety or age verification projects. $0. And they were all like, yo, this is for the kids. Don't worry. If you don't want to hand over your ID, you must be wanting to do something to kids. And what did it end up being? It's all corruption from the top to the bottom. I mean, age verification laws are just so...
It's not about the kids. The kids are merely a vehicle to go F you in the A. They want to F you as bad as Epstein F them kids. Okay?
So full of shit, and their whole for the kids bullcrap has just been proven wrong, and it has been proven wrong for like the last year or two now. By registering every PAC at the state level rather than federally, Meta scatters filings across dozens of state ethics commission databases with different formats, different disclosure timelines, and no centralized search. Each filing is technically public. Aggregating them into a coherent picture requires manually querying each state. This is structurally opacity by fragmentation. Of 20 Meta-backed candidates across Texas and North Carolina primaries, 19 won. And there's also a dark money network involved in this, but I think we could have all guessed that. Meta's Colorado lobbying runs through Headwater Strategies, paid $300,000 since 2019, with monthly payments jumping from roughly $5K a month to $14 to $30K a month starting July 2023 as state-level age verification bills accelerated. What a coincidence.
What was about the kids? A lot of rich CEOs and people would be in jail right now, not trying to hide the files. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So the person making the post, they parse the IRS Form 990 Schedule 1 filings across all 5 Arabella entities. That's 4,400 grants, totally approximating $2 billion. I searched for every child safety, age verification, and tech policy organizations I could identify. 0 matches. The Schedule 1 grant pathway is definitively ruled out. If Meta money flows through this network, it would have to travel via fiscal sponsorship, consulting fees, or non-grant payments, which are inherently less transparent. So it's all Meta that is benefiting here. Meta's own Horizon OS already has Meta account age verification, a get age category API, family-centered parental controls, Quest Store age ratings, and default minor account protections. Meta is not opposing these bills. In Colorado, this person pulled the lobbying records from the Secretary of State's SOTA API and found Meta's 4 registered lobbyists on SB 26 listed in a monitoring position. Not amending, not opposing, watching. Meta fights bills that regulate Meta. Meta watches bills that regulate everyone else. So
we talked about a lot of this over the years already, and I kept telling you all, Meta is a company you all need to really start moving away from. Like, don't get me wrong, Google is not a great company. But Meta is... If Google is the devil, Meta is the super devil. Does that make sense? But Google, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's like, yeah, they collected a lot of data on you. Okay? But Meta is actively trying to F you with it. Like Meta's Lucifer. But not in the TV show Lucifer that we actually love kind of way, but in the actual, like, evil, really evil kind of, you know, with horns kind of Lucifer.
So basically, rules for thee and not for me. So
yeah,
what can
actual
we
Lucifer.
do about this? Well, contact the EFF, SFF, and Software Freedom Conservancy with the specific statutory language and compliance gap numbers. They need to know these definitions cover volunteer maintained software with no exemption. Just go ahead and contact your representatives. Here are all the sources that he used for this. And again, shout out to this guy for doing so much research and showing all this information to all of us. I mean, they are telling us something that we kind of already knew, that age verification is full of crap and it was never about the kids. But it seems like Meta is the people, the freaking evil assholes that are behind all of this. And these guys are the ones that want all your information. Let me know what you guys' thoughts on the situation in the comments. Please do.
And look, y'all have been wondering why for years I've been so iffy on Threads. Like, do I have a Threads account? Yes. Do I cross-post to it? Yes. Do I use it? No, not really. Do I have an Instagram account? Yes. Do I really use it? No, I have a private account. I've deleted my Facebook years ago. But I'm on YouTube. I stream to it, all of that. But Meta, their accounts have been one of the few things I've just been kind of like, you know, I'm not really too keen on that one. What irks me is the amount of people that are just so laissez-faire with Meta. Oh, I just need my Facebook account and all that stuff. Bish, if people actually care about keeping in touch with you, give them your phone number. Give them your other socials. Delete your Facebook account. Get off that damn app. But yeah. Alright, moving on. So there was another thing over here. So I saw this in my rare time that I actually, was using TikTok. There was somebody that was, on TikTok, and this is about the FBI, unmasked a Proton Mail user. This was from an attorney that was just so off base in what she was saying. We'll go through this video, and I even made comments on it over here. Yeah. So,
mail makes you anonymous, but the FBI just...
We'll start over. Hold on. This is what I hate about TikTok, is you bring it up, and then it's like, yeah,
a Proton Mail
stop.
You think using Proton Mail makes you anonymous, but the FBI just exposed a Proton Mail user, and not by...
Here's the thing. Proton Mail is never claimed to make you anonymous. It is claimed to make you more private. And in fact, I left a comment on this post over here. God damn it. Hold on. For some reason, it is being a absolute dick when it comes to things. Did I leave? Yeah, here we are. So I left a comment over here. Email never made you anonymous. Doesn't matter the provider. It can make you more private so your data isn't sold, but they have to comply with Swiss law. Anonymity is not exactly the same as privacy. Privacy is controlling... Here, I'll put it over here so you can see that. Privacy is controlling who has access to your information. Anonymity is hiding your identity. Also, unless it's PGP encrypted, asymmetric encryption, it's not fully end-to-end encrypted. Email is not a very secure medium. Now, it is encrypted via TLS, the same way as we encrypt many web pages, end-to-end symmetrically. Proton's promise is privacy and encryption at rest. End-to-end encryption would be via PGP. So, we'll continue on with this.
Breaking the encryption. Proton Mail is famous for its end-to-end encryption and Swiss privacy protections. Activists with the Stop...
Again, as I said, Proton Mail has never claimed to be end-to-end encrypted. They've claimed they've used encryption at rest. Their end-to-end encryption is the optional use of PGP, Pretty Good Privacy, which is an open source technology using GNU PG, GNU Privacy Guard, that you have to optionally enable and generate your own keys with. But this is not that discussion, and PGP, in order to use that, you have to generate your own keys, they have to have their keys generated, and it's an asymmetric thing. So you have to have their public key and your private key, sign your private key, your messages with your private key to their public key, and they can only decrypt it with their private key. Yeah, so that's how it works.
You think using Proton Mail makes protections. Activists with the Stop City Cop movement believed that this meant that their identity was completely hidden, but they were wrong.
The problem is a lot of people have the misnomer of Proton Mail does... a lot of people get this wrong about email all the time. Oh, well, email, you can make my email private and all that. Can you host your own email? Yes, but I would not recommend it. Friends don't let friends run their own email servers. I used to run my own email server. It is a pain in the ass to run your own email server. Because not only do you have to run your own email server, you have to have a clean IP to run your own email server. So the only way to completely have, get around this idea of handing over your information is to host your own physical email server, have a static IP address, which you have to have a business email account. A business internet service provider account. Which doesn't really make it anonymous because there's ways that you can then go to the ISP and they can still figure it out. So the best argument you can then have is when the police inevitably do come to you with a warrant to ask for your emails, you can then say no and contest it in court. But if a lawful order is handed to you to hand over all the things by when a court says they have a warrant to search, you have to hand it over. That's the law. That's how it is. So, like, a lot of people have this wrongful idea in their head where they're like, well, Proton should... No business is going to go to jail for you. An email is not the service you think it is. If you really want to have private communications, tin cans and string is what I always tell people. That's your best bet. Second to that, fully encrypted communications using PGP, asymmetric encryption, which you can then do over email. Or you could do PGP encrypted communications over, you could even do it over Discord. You could do it over anything because it's just an asymmetric encryption where you can have a blob, basically a wall of text that just letters and numbers. But you have to share keys ahead of time for that to work. And that's inconvenient for a lot of people. And a lot of people are not going to go around that way. And 99.9% of you people don't know about PGP. Well, maybe my chat knows more about it, okay? Because you're a little bit more educated. You tend to be more in the cybersecurity side of thing. But the average person out there, in terms of the population, 99.9% of you don't know what PGP is and don't need to know about what PGP is and don't care about what PGP is. So, with that being said, yeah.
According to 404 Media, the FBI did not hack the email and they did not break the encryption. They used something called a mutual legal assistance treaty. That allowed the Swiss government to legally order Proton Mail to hand over subscriber payment records,
which is a legal thing that any business has to do. They say that in their own agreements. Look, when the Swiss court goes to Proton, they say this in their T&C. The advantage of the Swiss court system is that if the United States court system comes directly to them, they can basically say, go pound sand, go to the Swiss courts and tell us what you, go to the Swiss court and see what they say. Well, if the FBI goes to the Swiss court and the Swiss court then says to hand it over, then the Swiss company has to comply. In the same way, okay, let me give you another example. Morocco has no, the FBI has no power over Morocco, okay? If the FBI goes to Morocco, Morocco can basically say, go pound sand. But if the FBI then gets the Moroccan government to enact a lawful order, then the Moroccan business would have to comply. The same thing would happen in any other country. St. Kitts and Nevis, any of those. Just because they don't comply with U.S. law directly doesn't mean the U.S. government can't go to that government and then bring about a case to then issue a lawful order under that government's judicial system. And what shocks me is that a lawyer doesn't understand this.
the messages, the metadata. And that's the trap. Encryption protects what you say. It does not protect the...
So Morocco can basically simply say F off. Most countries can say F off. Most countries can just say F off. A lot of countries don't have reciprocity agreements. In fact, there have been cases where, I don't know the specifics of it, but I know I was told this. People have fled to other governments, and even though they have agreements with the U.S. governments, they, like Edward Snowden. What was it? Julian Assange. Julian Assange, okay? He went to Ecuador, the Ecuadorian embassy. They told the U.S. to F off for years until they finally gave in. Ecuador had no legal requirement whatsoever to give in to the United States. They agreed to give over Julian Assange, but they had no legal requirement to do so. They came to an illegal agreement to do that. In the same way that, like, Russia with Edward Snowden. If somehow the United States could convince Russia, not saying it will happen, I'm just saying it could happen, Russia could turn over Edward Snowden. The only thing that's protecting him is that Russia won't, go back on that deal. So most countries have the ability to turn away and say F off. And many do. It's not this thing, like, a lot of people don't realize a lot of countries deal with America out of diplomacy because of the relations they've built. Not because they have to, but because they want to.
Financial trail that connects your account to your real identity. If you pay for a secure service using a credit card in your name, you are no longer anonymous.
That should have never really been a, secret there. You pay with any service online digitally, you're not going to be anonymous. Even when you pay in Bitcoin, you're only pseudo-anonymous. What I mean by that is that Bitcoin is pseudo-anonymous because if you have enough information around a Bitcoin payment address, you can then de-anonymize a Bitcoin user because the ledger is public. But something like Monero, where a lot of the transaction stuff, unless you have access to the actual ledger of the actual account there, the private keys, you don't have information. But when they do, the CIA can't kidnap him, probably.
The important thing to take away is that the number one rule of operational security is that your metadata is often more dangerous than the message itself. Follow if you want to understand how investigations like this actually work, and subscribe to the War Room, my private community.
Oh, it's just she's selling a private community, basically. That explains a lot. But the interesting thing was when you looked at, but basically what I said in response to this was, as I said, email never made you anonymous, doesn't matter the provider. It can make you more private so your data isn't sold, but they have to comply with Swiss law. Anonymity is not exactly the same as privacy. Privacy is controlling who has access to your information. Anonymity is hiding your identity. Also, unless it's PGP encrypted, asymmetric encryption, it's not fully end-to-end encrypted. Email is not a very secure medium. Now, it is encrypted via TLS the same way as we encrypt many web pages end-to-end symmetrically. Proton's promise is privacy and encryption at rest. End-to-end encryption would be via PGP. They've always been very clear that they have to comply with Swiss laws and T&C, terms and conditions. Same way as any other business in USA has to comply with US law or when conducting business elsewhere. For example, Apple and ADP, Advanced Data Protection, in the UK. I think the takeaway from this is that email has never been that great. It's decades-old technology. It's still old tech with a new wardrobe. Believe me, if you've ever administrated an email system or handled email security, you know what I mean. And I think I added on here. Also, email is only encrypted from gateway to gateway, not end-to-end. Again, that's PGP, which 99.9% of you don't use nor probably have heard. TLS between email gateways. And a lot of the people, why does she have a red outline? That's a good question. I see purple around you. That might be your screen. But, yeah, a lot of people don't understand the difference between privacy and anonymity. You can be private on the internet. It's harder to remain anonymous. Privacy is controlling that data, what you put out there. Anonymity is, I don't put any data out there. A lot of people choose not to be private. You see what I'm saying? But also, like I was saying, email is not a very anonymous technology to begin with. And it's not the most secure technology either. If you actually send an email, unless you're controlling your entire email infrastructure, and it's PGP encrypted, when you send an email, that email is sent out, encrypted at the gateway, so your email provider can read all your emails going out, by the way, if you did not realize that. And then going over the internet provider using TLS encryption to the other email provider, hitting their gateway, then being decrypted, where that other email provider can then read the emails, because it's decrypted at the gateway, and then it hits your email inbox. And that's done for a variety of reasons. Because, you know, it has to check it for phishing and doing other kind of analysis, checking SPF, DMARC, DKIM records, all those kind of things at the header level and things like that. Now, PGP will encrypt the body of all of that and just allow the headers through. But I definitely use PGP sometimes. But yeah, you can find my PGP key for my email in my links to contact me. Not that everyone really uses it. I generally cycle my keys every few years. But yeah, this is the thing that irks me when people. And every few months, I keep having to rehash this whole Proton Mail story in another way or shape or form. Oh, Proton Mail gave away information about this user. No, they didn't. They gave away payment information, which they said they would have to give away under a court order. They wouldn't have that information if you used a free account. Oh, well, you know, they gave away the recovery email that they had, and then they de-anonymized the user. Well, you didn't have to give the recovery email in the first place, which is how a lot of people that thought they were being clever behind Twitter handles with a Proton address were, until they realized that the recovery email that they used tied to their Yahoo or Gmail or something, and then de-anonymized them when the FBI and such went after them. What shocks me more with this one, she's allegedly a lawyer. I would think a lawyer would allegedly should probably know more about how the law works. And this is why I also get concerned when it comes to politicians, because politicians are primarily lawyers. Look it up. It's a fact. In the United States, the majority of them are lawyers. And they don't consult the tech experts when they, talk about their things. And this is why we're in the mess we are. Because they run their mouth. And they don't know what they're talking about. And they want to run this hype up. Yes, am I affiliated with Proton? Yeah, but I will tell you straight up, Proton, it doesn't matter Proton, it doesn't matter Google, it doesn't matter Office 365, email sucks. You're going to have to, the email is just used because it's ubiquitous, the same way as the fax machine at this point. Yes, it shocks a lot of Europeans, we still use fax machines, okay, so it is what it is. Anyway, moving on. You can still send telegrams. Yes, you can. I have F'd with people that way. Candygram from Mongo. Candygram from Mongo. Okay, so what is this? I tested 40 cables so you don't buy rubbish. I don't know if we're going to watch this full video here, because I don't know if I want to watch a full 20-minute video on cables.
Cheap and cheerful, so I've tested almost 40 USB-C cables to find the best performing cable for the least amount of money. We'll go through all the good ones, plus a few dodgy ones, so you can avoid scams. And I'll be chopping up an expensive cable and a cheap cable and checking it out on a digital microscope to see the difference. Plus, we'll be taking a quick look at this neat little gadget that lets you power almost anything via USB-C. It's all the...
Is that the same device that Lon showed earlier in the stream too?
Facts, none of the faff, coming right up. Alrighty, this video is not sponsored. 99% of these cables I paid for myself, with very few exceptions I'll put on screen now, so an expensive episode for me. I hope you find it useful, and please, if you do buy any of these cables, use the affiliate links in the pinned comment below to help me recoup some of the costs and pay for the next episode. First up, let's set a baseline by testing the undisputed best of the best. Several of you asked why I didn't test it last time. Well, here it is, the Anker Prime Thunderbolt 5 USB 4 Gen 4, which is a $45 beast, promising 80 to 120
Jesus, $45 for a cable?
Power. But like all cables, those bleeding edge specs are theoretical for most people. To my knowledge, there are no laptops that charge at 240 watts yet. Even the latest MacBook Pro only does 96 watts, despite what some dumb AI might say. As for data, there are a few Thunderbolt 5 laptops out there which will do 80 to 120 gigabits a second, but for 99% of people watching, myself included, 40 gig or Thunderbolt 4 is the most you can expect, so that's what I'll be testing. So Anker Prime Thunderbolt 4 comes in a nice looking box. Pulling the cable out, it's a braided nylon, but it is also the softest and most flexible braided nylon I've ever had in terms of a Thunderbolt 5 cable. They've done a really, really good job. This is
for $45,
really
it better give me head too. Jeez.
Confirms 80 gigabits, 240 watt Thunderbolt 5. So today I'll be testing on the PowerZ as well as the new K2 USB tester, which is heaps cheaper, so we can see how it performs. Testing charging speed on the A-Torch, and it does 140 watts, even 150 watts with ease. Moving on to data transfer.
Holy crap, is that like a device that has like a massive CPU cooler on it? I was wondering what that is.
I'll be rating each cable on Flex.
Anker makes good products. They make good cables and power bricks. And batteries, but they've been shitty everything else. They had a whole scandal with their UFI security cameras and stuff like that. Just an FYI, I think it was UFI, their security camera company, actually reached out to me to do a collaboration. I think they threw like $1,000 at me. I turned it down because I'm not taking... No, they had security issues with their shit that was well known. I'm not partnering with a company that had open security issues that was feeding data that shouldn't have been that way. Hopefully they fixed it, but no. But the cables, the batteries, the power bricks, they're still good. I still use them. I still recommend them. But everything else on Anker.
Stability and quality as well, with a final score.
I haven't tried their
earbuds. Grade system. Now this is easily an A+ premium data cable, but it is not cheap. $45 US on Amazon, $60 Aussie on AliExpress. But if you just want the best cable, the link for this is below. You can't go wrong. If you'd like to get something around 80 to 90% there for about half the price, let's keep looking. Hold the phone. Hours before this episode was due to go live, this arrived in the mail. This is an LTT True Spec cable made by Linus Tech Tips. So apologies, this is a bit rushed. If you're not familiar, yeah, LTT True Spec by Linus Tech Tips. They've tried to make a cable that meets the required specifications. Interestingly, I didn't see a USB IF specification mentioned anywhere, but this is a beast. This is twice as thick as any other cable I'll be testing. Out of 40 cables, it's like a 120 volt, 240 volt extension cord, though it's wrapped in silicon. Quite flexible for a high-speed cable. Checking the eMarket in the PowerZ, it comes up as expected, USB 4 Gen 3, though the eMarket chip was curiously lacking any detail. I kind of expected to see LTT or something there, but it was unnamed, which was a bit of a missed opportunity. 150 watts on the A-Torch, no problems. Data performance was the real standout though. So 3700 megabytes a second write and 3050 read, equal highest out of 40 cables testing on my M4 Mac. So the big question is it worth the price? $46 US, which is equal to the Anker Prime Thunderbolt 5. To be honest, does present as a high quality cable, the Anker Prime. All the quality on this is on the inside though. And when you watch me later in this video cut a couple of cables and look at them under a microscope, you'll see why that's important. There's a lot going on inside here. An easy A+ for the True Spec. Let's move on. Okay, so there are a few Anker Prime Thunderbolt 5 clones.
If it truly holds up over time, I don't know. I can't really trust them to hold a screwdriver, so can I really trust them to hold up a cable? You be the judge of that. I don't know. Like I've said before, when it comes to LTT, I just kind of feel like he's, as chat, one of the, I forgot who it was in chat, said it kind of feels like he sold out. Could it be a good thing? Maybe, but...
We'll look at the two best ones that I found. This one is the cheapest decent one at $15 US and $20 Aussie. So this one's Ugord branded, but there's a few brands I've linked below. This one's made with TPU, so it is very flexible. Note the original isn't TPU. eMarket confirms Thunderbolt 5, 80 to 120 gig, 240 watts. Moving on to the A-Torch, and it takes 100 and 150 watts like a champ onto the data. Very high, 3,800.
That's probably what he did. I mean, that's basically what a lot of these companies do, is they get an OEM to make a product for them, then they slap their name on it, and then they bulk buy it. That's basically what a lot of them do. Because I highly doubt Linus is actually, like, doing a whole manufacturing facility. That would not make sense, economically speaking. It just wouldn't.
100 write and 3,000 read. Now that is a really good score. So yeah, this is the best cheap copy of the Anker Prime. Okay, and this one here
gives it a B+, but I mean, like $15, that probably be the best cable for me right now, given all there. No, manufacturing is not easy to run up. Not for cables like that. No, it is not. It is not. Cables do not have a good markup. You do not make a lot on the margins. And you have to make money on volume. So he would have to have gone through another OEM to have made the cable.
Is the best quality.
I mean, I could probably buy any of these and sell them at 10 times markup after slapping audiophile on it. You could. Chief is not watching on Twitch. Yes, I am!
The low-cost clones of the Anker Prime Thunderbolt 5.
I'm just ignoring you, Vampire.
It's a lot more similar to the original with a very fine and soft braided cable. It's the GEYI branded TB5 cable from the first review. A bit more money than the other one at $27 US, so not cheap, but you can immediately feel the difference in quality. It uses a very soft nylon like the original. Checking out the eMarker, looking good on both. A-Torch tells us 150 watts, so the 240 watts should be fine. Moment of truth is the data test, and 3,700 by 3,000, so not bad at all. The other one got a tiny bit higher, but this is still my favorite just because of the overall quality and similarity to the original. Moving along, this is the cable.
You know, for 27 bucks, that's actually a good cable. Like that $15 and $27 cable, I'd probably go with those over the LTT and that Anker cable they had at 45. Like, I just can't justify $45 for cable. I just cannot justify $45 for a cable. I can justify 15. I could maybe justify 27. Buffering a bit there. I'm not dropping any frames over here. I'm still showing only 503 frames dropped at 0.1%. So I don't know what to tell you.
Book creation, USB 4, Gen 4, 80 gig to 120 gig, 240 watts. So yeah, immediately right away, this feels high quality. It's a thick TPU, but it's not sticky like the other ones. It feels more like a rubber or something. It's got a very average score on Amazon because this guy's given it 1 star, saying it'll only do 350 megabytes a second. Don't know whether that's right. Checking the e-marker, it says it is an 80 gig cable with a named chip, not a generic.
Okay.
Pulls 150 watts easily. We'll check the data on this, and 3,600, so no idea what that guy was on about. This is a definite 80 gig cable, probably plugged it into a hub or a slow port in his laptop or something like that, because this is a good cable, especially for 18 bucks. Yeah, link below.
18 bucks? That's a good cable. And not feeling sticky like it just finished in a adult shoot? That's a plus. You know, you ever get those cables that feel like they were just used in an adult shoot? You know, like that certain... It was used on those cameras.
So definitely a nice one. Give that an A. Okay, so next up, the Voltamax 240 watt magnetic with USB-C, Lightning, and micro connectors. The only cable today that was sent in by the manufacturer. So e-markers on both show no response, but we're hitting 150 watts on the A-Torch, no problems. So power checks out. For data, they say it's a 20 gig cable, but whatever the case, for a magnetic quick connect doing Thunderbolt speeds, it is still pretty impressive. USB port here tucks away. You can just pull it out, and then you've got the USB-C on the other side.
I mean, that's kind of nice, but I don't really use anything with the USB-A much anymore.
I think this pack is about $58 US. Now, that includes a Lightning for an iPhone, a micro USB, and the Type-C connector I've got on my phone.
Who uses Lightning anymore in this day and age?
Cables. Some are going to love it, and many do apparently, but if you're like me and you often use your phone when it's charging, then it's probably not for you. I'll give a quick demonstration. So if I just hold the cable here and I move my phone, it does disconnect relatively easily, despite having pretty significant holding power. But if you just plonk your phone down to charge like this and walk away, there is a whole bunch of convenience there, so I can imagine why a lot of people do like it. If you do want to get one of these, get the silicon one. There's
I have a whole like charging station on my dresser
in terms of that issue. Overall, I'll give this one a B+. Okay, let's look at one which changed me from a Ugreen fan to an Anker fan, the Prime A88E2. This is a 240 watt cable with USB 2, so it's a charge cable. Still not cheap at $30 US, but damn, this cable is sweet as. It's not even like a USB cable. It's like a fine cord that you use to tie your curtains or your tapestries.
We have many tapestries.
It's super light. It's really soft and crazy flexible. I mean, look at that. Instantly.
I would never do that with a cable.
Checking the e-marker, it's good. Anker branded into the A-Torch, and of course we get 150 watts okay. Data is as expected, 65 write, 35 read. Now they're saying it's got a 100-year durability rating, $26.99 on Amazon Prime, $30 otherwise.
27 bucks for that.
Like this. USB I've certified, A+, easy, actually nicer than silicon. Never thought I'd say that. It is just so flexible and soft. You just wrap it around your finger like that.
Yeah, don't do that. Okay, don't do that to your cables.
Now with premium data cables, and this is Ugreen's answer to the Anker Prime Thunderbolt 5. This is the Ugreen L706.
Ugreen makes pretty good stuff.
Cable, 27 bucks US or 33 Aussie. Into the K2, and e-market checks out 80 gig by 240 watts with a Johnson Corporation chip.
Like a giant Johnson.
A-Torch powers, zero
Austin Powers reference.
150 watts. Testing data, and after a few attempts, we're getting 3,600 write by 3,000 read, which is good, but it is noticeably stiffer than the Anker. Like, just see, it won't bend any more than that.
Stiffer, huh?
It does remind me of a cheap AliExpress cable, but at $27 or $30 or whatever it is not cheap. I'll have to downgrade it to a B+. Now this is a much smarter buy. The L705 Ugreen cable, it'll do 240 watts and 40 gigabits a second. It's also a lot less money at $15.50 US on Amazon or 25 bucks Aussie. It's also noticeably more flexible. So let's give it a try, and eMarket checks out 240 watts, 40 gigs, testing power, and we're getting the 150 watts, no problems. Onto data, and 3,770 write, so a little bit faster than the previous one. For 99% of people, this is the one to get. It's cheaper, it's more flexible, great cable, great price. I'll give this an A. Okay, this is another cheapy, generic USB 5. Some of them call it USB 5. It's a USB 4 Gen 4, 80 gig, 240 watts claimed, less than $7. eMarket checks out, unbranded. Been really impressed with this K2, by the way. It's kept up with all the cables that I've done in this review. I think from about 35 cables, was maybe only 2 that it didn't read. So for $30 or something compared to 100, yeah, I quite like the K2. Onto the power, and 150 watts does check out. So data test after 5 shots, 3,400 read and 3,000 write. So a tiny bit slower than the fastest one here. So I'll give this one a
MP5. It's better than MP3.
People who haven't tested it giving it 5 stars. People who have tested it but tested it incorrectly giving it 1 star. Another guy reviewing a WorkPro cordless drill and posting photos of carpet giving it 5 stars. Don't trust the reviews, good or bad. Okay, we'll do the cheapest cable I found next, but first, a lot of people have said I need to cut the cables to really compare the quality. I don't really follow the logic, since these aren't copper DC cables where the thicker the better. The wires on this is going to be microscopic. Thankfully, Banggood have hooked me up with this super cheap digital microscope. Now again, nobody's paid me to say any of this.
The cable is not really going to make as much sense with this.
It's the store that really got me started with cheap electronics and RC gear.
The voltage drop is not really going to be as significant as if you were doing AC, especially over longer distances. That's just not how it works. So, I mean, he can cut it open and show you, and maybe you're going to find it's better shielded or something, but I don't know what it's going to really show.
As for the microscope, this is a cheapie, 30 US bucks, 40 Aussie. There'll be a coupon below with a link to get the best price. Let's try it out. So I reckon we'll do that Ugreen 80 gig cable we just checked out before. That's about $28 US versus the really cheap $6 USB 5 cable that I reckon is pretty damn good. This is going to be really interesting. $27 versus $6. This seems terrible, but it's for science. Alright, so there's 1. Here's the cheapie. 2. Alright, so take a guess now. Which one do you think is which? We'll take a close look on the microscope. We can see a whole bunch of different strands, and we've got the shielding around the outside. It looks like we've also got shielding internally. All kinds of different stuff going on. So you got some thick, that must be the power cables. Yeah, so you got your 2
kind of what you expected. Stranded cabling, data cable.
And then really tiny ones in the middle.
Data signaling wires.
Now let's look at cable B. It does actually look quite different. So this one you can certainly more clearly see the shielding on the outside, and then you've got the red cable in the middle, which must be your positive. Where's the negative? I can't see a match for that unless it's hidden down in the corner there. And then the really small ones are just kind of hidden in random places, spread out a lot more. I would say these ones, they seem to have a lot more shielding around those medium-sized, must be the data lines. Can see the positive power cable, can't see the negative. And what is all that white stuff? Going back to the first one, I guess this one also has quite a bit of shielding around those middle ones. It just looks like a different material. It's also got secondary shielding. So very interesting. I'll get some really nice screenshots and I'll put that up on the screen. You can take a guess at which one you think is the expensive one and which one you think is the cheap one. And I can tell you now, this one is the cheap one.
I kind of figured. Copper's more expensive.
That is the $6 cable right there. This is the Ugreen. It does look a lot more organized. You definitely see the earthing looks a lot clearer on this one. Go back to
that was the thing that gave it away.
See a lot less earthing on this one, but much bigger power, I would say. This does seem to have secondary shielding around those medium-sized cables, though. Does this one have that? Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe. As for the microscope, look, no brainer to have something like this on your bench, especially if you solder. Yeah, I like it, especially for the money. The only complaint I've got about this hole here, so they need to update 12. I'm going to have tools channel I've ever tested from last episode, dollars and now, and we've got 36 cables for most people. Now, of course, this is a very stiff cable, but yeah, for $4.50.
Yeah, I mean, basically it comes down to is, it's a cable. You're gonna have good ones and bad ones. But is it the microscope that can see the scan lines on a laser disc? Yeah, and I think there's more to it than just cutting the cable and seeing it, because, you know, you would need to actually see, could you introduce EMI and things like that, but then you would have to introduce an unrealistic amount of EMI to actually impact a USB signal. That's just my take. Anyway, moving on. Alright, what is this? The Mr. Multisystem 2 review, a consoleized FPGA retro gaming and computing device.
Hey everybody, it's Lon Seidman. We've got another Mr. video to check out. Today we're looking at the Mr. Multisystem 2. If you're not familiar with the Mr. project, I've done a bunch of videos on them, and I own a lot of them at this point. I'm probably going to get rid of a few of these soon. And
I'll take one.
Are these little FPGA-based computers that very accurately replicate how old computers, game consoles, and arcade systems worked. So right now we're running an Amiga demo, and of course the Amiga computer had a lot of custom chips that all work together on the FPGA chip that drives a Mr. device like the Multisystem.
The Amiga is really ahead of its time.
Replicating all of those old chips, and all of the logic paths for software like this demo operate the same way they did on the original hardware. So the result is things are very, very accurate, not only when you're plugged into a modern HDMI display like this, but also when you can connect this thing up to a CRT television, which all of these Mr. systems allow you to do, and you get a very legit retro experience. These things can replicate everything from like the Sega Saturn on back. So if I hit the F12 key here, I can jump out of what we're currently in and load up a different system. So you can see all the different computers that it supports here. You know,
wait, it can do like Apple II?
Down to the Nintendo 64.
Oh, that is awesome. It can do Nintendo 64 too?
Here, and load up another game. And now we've changed its behavior from that Amiga system now to the hardware that powered the Nintendo 64. And look at that, the game is up and running just perfectly. So the Mr. is a great open source project, and now it's kind of a cottage industry. When Mr. first became a thing, you had to get all these different components like a DE10 Nano development board, RAM modules, and all this other stuff. But now it's kind of a cottage industry where you can just go out and buy a consoleized system like this, or one of these clones for a little less money that
yeah, interesting. I'm going to see if I can look up one of these.
And you've got some choice now and a little more availability than we've seen in quite some time. There's still a lag on these. You do have to pre-order them and wait for them to get made in batches, but it's pretty fun to see how things are developing. What's unique about this one is that they've taken the DE10 Nano guts of the FPGA and they built it around their own motherboard. So there is just a single board on this. There's not a stack of boards all wired
I love
together.
FPGAs.
And it's a pretty nice implementation that offers some very interesting hardware upgrades that you might be able to do to it as well. So we're going to take a closer look at this in just a second, but I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that I paid for this with my own funds. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one has reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded, and of course this is not a sponsored review. So let's get into it now and take a look at the Multisystem 2. Now these are manufactured in the UK, and one of the people behind the Multisystem 2 is Neil here, who's also the host of RMC, a popular YouTube channel. And Neil's channel is located inside of a building that is owned by Heber Limited, and Heber is an electronics manufacturer, and they are making the motherboard for the Multisystem 2 and basically assembling the whole system and testing it. So this is a 100% UK-made device. The case here is 3D printed, but it's not a cheap 3D print. It feels really good. Some people think it's super ugly. I think it looks pretty cool. It reminds me of some of the stuff I used to hook up to my TV in the 80s and early 90s. And again, it's a consoleized Mr. that is taking the entire stack of boards that you typically see on a Mr. device, and they've built it into...
So if you want to buy it, it's 258 pounds with the VAT, value-added tax. So for me as an American, without the VAT, would be 215 pounds. What is that, like
a
300
single
bucks?
consoleized motherboard that is 100% compatible. Now, I paid about $386 to get this delivered to my door. That included the main system here, along with the snack cartridge that I'll talk about in a sec.
About 290 bucks right now. Plus, oh yeah, the Trump tariffs got repealed, so, shouldn't be as much of a problem. Because Cheeto Man didn't get his way. Hooray.
And this does cost a little bit more than some of the other Mr. devices out there. Currently, the least expensive one is the QM Tech one that I looked at, that I was surprised by how well it ended up performing given its low price point. So if you are on a budget, the QM Tech is the way to go. They pop up on AliExpress quite frequently. But I do like what they're doing with this one because there are more ports, there's more expandability options given how they laid out the motherboard here, and they have some things that are very unique to the Mr. ecosystem here that we'll step through now. So why don't we start off with the most interesting component of this hardware, which is their cartridge system. So as you can see, we've got the cartridge that goes in. There's a door to cover it up if you don't buy.
That looks like a PCI Express.
And the one that I bought with my multi-system 2 here is the snack adapter. This looks like a USB port, but I have another adapter that I bought from Mr. Add-ons that I reviewed a little while back that you can see in the video playlist down below. And what I can do with this slot here with the adapter installed is use NES controllers, for example, NES light guns, and other controllers with the cores that support those controllers. You can basically electrically connect an original controller to the core and have essentially zero lag on a CRT television, for example. So this is how I can get my NES light gun to work when I'm hooked up to my TV upstairs. So this is a great thing to have. Now I should note that most of these Mr. clones have the snack port already built in, but here you have to buy a cartridge to get that. It's not that expensive, but it is something that you have to add onto it. And they've got a bunch of cartridges that already have the controller slots.
So the honest truth is, looking at these Mr. clones on AliExpress, they're about 200 bucks. They're about 200 bucks or so. So it's about the same price, give or take.
On there, so if you don't want to buy adapters, you can get, for example, a Saturn, a NES, a Super Nintendo. They've got a PC Engine one here, an N64. So there's a lot of different cartridges for controllers, but they've also got some other stuff that works with this slot, including an ability to get composite video out of your Mr. Multi-System 2 if you wanted to hook it up to a TV that lacked RGB connections. They've got another one here if you wanted to play around with the Roland MT32 Raspberry Pi project on your AO486 core for PCs. You can use that. And I do expect we'll see more cartridges coming out in the future. There's a pretty active community around this, coming up with different ideas for that slot. Additionally, they've got some other expansion options like an LCD kit that you can get to attach a screen to the back of your multi-system. And the multi-system itself is designed to get at some of the expansion features of the FPGA board that it's based off of. So for example, on the side here, you've got GPIO pins to get access to that DE10 Nano clone that is basically the motherboard. And on the other side here, you've got additional expansion opportunities with some more headers. You have a USB port here, so if you had a Wi-Fi dongle, you could stick it in there to keep it out of sight. But they also have room in here for putting in an NVMe drive for larger storage beyond the SD card that I'll talk about in a second. And so you just have to get an adapter that fits, and you plug its USB into that, and you've got self-contained storage, so you don't have to have stuff hanging off the side of your Mr.
Hey, that's got Ethernet in the back?
Now. So they thought a lot about expansion here, and a lot of these expansion opportunities are on the original hardware that we've seen on other Mr. projects, but here it's a lot more accessible. One other thing I wanted to show you are some things that they've got cooking right now. So for example, they put something up on their Twitter page recently showing how you could maybe put a display on the left-hand side to talk about whatever game or system is currently loaded. Here they've got an example of a cartridge loader that you could put on the right-hand side of the system. So there's a lot that you can do with this expansion, especially because it's accessible to the user. There's a bunch of dip switches and other things that you can adjust for getting things working the way you want. This is clearly an enthusiast device, and they didn't limit you in any way. There is a really good manual on their website that you can dig through that details everything and all of the different things that the system is capable of from a hardware configuration standpoint. It's very detailed, it's really easy to get started, and you can dive in as much as you need to get to what you're looking for. And they've got a nice schematic here of their custom designed motherboard as well. And they built in a ton of connectivity on this. You've got 4 USB ports right on the front here for connecting up controllers. You could, of course, attach a Bluetooth adapter to get Bluetooth controllers installed. It does not have Wi-Fi or Bluetooth out of the box, so you will need to add a compatible adapter. The SD card, unlike other Mr. devices, is a full-size SD card, so you can buy a big one here and just pop it in, and they've got great instructions for getting everything flashed and started. We've talked about that in prior videos, so check out my video of the Mr. Pi, which I showed how you can set up one of these things from scratch, and the process for this system is the same because it is running off the Mr. project. These are buttons for hitting reset and pulling up your on-screen menus. This ties in with the DE10 Nano. What I really like about this system is that it has an on-off switch. Isn't that cool? So on the other Misters that I have, once you plug them in, they power up. Here you can turn it on or off with the power switch. Now, speaking of power, there is a barrel connector here for getting it connected.
It's got Toslink. What the? That's cool.
To power. The power supply is an extra add-on that you have to buy. However, it is a standard 5-volt connection. It just has a barrel adapter on it. One thing that I'm using to power mine, because I didn't buy the power adapter when I bought it, is I got this little guy from a company called Werewolf. In full disclosure, they sent it to the channel free of charge the other day. I did a review of this. It's a really cool adapter. And what you do is you just program this in with the voltage that you need. So I dialed in 5 volts. The starter kit they sent me came with the right barrel connection here, and I was good to go, and I can use any USB power source. So if you've got a USB to barrel connector that's center positive, you'll be fine. One thing to note is that the system can draw as much as 4 amps depending on what you have connected to it. So you do need a power supply that can deliver that. They do have a bunch of safety hardware installed to prevent things from getting fried on you, but just be aware of that.
That's a little bit of power there.
Output for connecting up modern displays. You've got optical out, analog out. This looks like a Sega video output connector, which it is, but it's designed to connect up to SCART adapters. So this is something that won't connect you to composite or S-Video. You will need to get that cartridge we talked about or another adapter. But if you are using SCART, this is the convenient way to get
that in a minute.
SCART connected here. And that's something that is, I think, unique to this device. This switch is used here for when you're hooking up CRT televisions. I'm hooking mine up through this VGA connector here. I bought an RGB component cable from Mr. Add-ons that I use with my CRT set upstairs. It works on all of my Misters, and it works here as well. Here you've got Ethernet, and then you've got 2 more USB ports here in the back.
Lots of USBs.
Plenty of USB connectivity to get everything up and running. One other note is they have a slot here, and there is a project that allows you to insert cards with games on an RFID chip. You do have to buy this adapter for this RFID thing to work, but you can take out your little cards and scan them on the surface here, and that will load up the proper core and the game if you wanted a faster way to get into your stuff. And that is pretty much the hardware here. Really nice Mr. system that is very different than the others that we have looked at. Why don't we boot this thing up now and see what it can do? All right, so let's flick the switch here and power things up. And it does take it a second to boot up, but once you're in, it's very quick to switch around cores, as you saw at the beginning of our video here. And so you get a little snow on screen, and then you are good to go. Now, what's cool about the way these Misters work is that if you do have a CRT television attached, you can also get the HDMI output simultaneously. So if you were doing a retro video game stream, you can play on a tube TV and share the digital output simultaneously, which is awesome. Now, what I thought I would do here as a quick demo is show you.
You know how cool that would be? I could actually like have a tube TV or something and then capture card at the same time. That'd actually be a really good use case for it.
You probably a very involved arcade core, one of the more advanced ones, which would be Street Fighter Alpha 3. There's a great script that you can use called Update All. Once you have that script configured, it will grab most of what you need to play just about any of the supported arcade games or systems. So if I go over here to Street Fighter Alpha 3, that will load everything up. It'll take it a second to bring those ROMs in, but once it's all assembled, it gets working. All of these were made by the community.
And it's been
Some of the things that they do to get these cores to work is they look at the actual chips, they burn off the casings, and they're manually, from a microscope, mapping all of the logic paths. It's insane what the community has done to get these things working. But as you'll see here, once it loads up, this is running perfectly on the hardware. It looks great. I'll give you a closer image here of the opening screen. Lots of flashing here, so if you're sensitive to that, please fast forward. But there you go. It looks great. You can run this forever. It just keeps playing without issues. I'm not getting any overheating issues or too much temperature on the outside of the case. This thing seems to be fairly well thermally balanced, and these very difficult cores are certainly running just fine on it. This does have 128 megabytes of memory built in, which is more than adequate for all of these arcade cores. Look how good that looks. So,
128 megabytes, jeez.
I did run the RAM test on it earlier.
That's more than enough for all these retro games.
150 megahertz for pretty much as long as I was running the test here for. So you shouldn't have any issues with RAM or other hardware issues, and it does go through some extensive testing prior to shipping. So all good here. I don't think any cores actually run the memory at 150 megahertz, so this was certainly more than adequate for throwing all these big cores at it, and the little ones also. Now, as you saw at the outset, it's very easy to switch to a different core. So for example, I can hit the F12 key here and go over to core and select something else. So we'll maybe jump out of this screen here and go over to our console menu. I can scroll down here and maybe we'll take a look at the Sega 32X next. So that will load up, and I can just load up my Star Wars game here, and it will go to town. So everything is very fast here, and that's what I love about this. And this system does nothing but run these cores, and of course it's using that FPGA to do it. But there's been so much work done over the last couple of years to get as much of the 90s and 80s and 70s computers and consoles modeled perfectly in here. There are video filters that you can apply as well. The community's been working on that. So if you go to video processing, you can select scan lines and have those become part of your repertoire here if you want. I am one who just likes it on the nearest neighbor, but if you wanted to find something that was closer to what you were looking for, you've got plenty of options here to pursue to get the look that you want on your modern TV. So there is a lot here that you can choose from, both on the audio and the video side, to get the image the way you want. But for me, most of the time, I like to leave it on near neighbor, and if I want the real experience, I go up to my CRT television that is upstairs. And I did run a bunch of games on that to make sure everything worked well on the TV.
I need to go to a thrift store and get a CRT TV.
Newer
if I
display
had
here.
space for more
First
crap.
up is that Street Fighter 3 we just looked at. It worked perfectly on the CRT, so it's always fun to play arcade games in the home like that. Neo Geo Core is on here as well.
Oh, you can do Neo Geo too?
2003, one of the largest games that you can get on the Neo Geo. That one worked just fine. Sega Saturn, Daytona USA booted up without issue. Now this system, though, does not have a dual memory option, so that's something that a few Saturn games require for compatibility. But for the most part, the bulk of the Saturn library is going to boot up and play just fine on this device like it does on other Misters that I've tested in the past. And again, it all looks great when you've got
I'd love to play Jet Grind
to
Radio.
Television. I was very fortunate that the TV that I took from my dad's house when he was getting rid of it has those RGB connections on the back, so the image is pristine. And one thing I noticed with this Mister is that the image looked a little cleaner than it does out of some of the other Misters that I have tested prior. It's not a huge difference, but it is noticeable, and I think it's due to the fact that you've got everything on a single board where they can control a lot of the electrical noise that you can't control when you've got a bunch of boards stacked together in some of the other Mister versions that we have looked at. One other thing I just love about the Mister is that there is a ton of computing options. So as the 32X here is playing in the background, you can pretty much play just about any computer from the 80s here that you've ever tinkered around with, including some obscure ones. And when you find the computer you're looking for, you can just boot it on up. A friend of mine had a Coco 3 at home, so you can hit the button here and boom, you've got yourself a Coco 3. and you have a lot of options that are specific for those computers. You've got the Commodore 64 here, again, running in FPGA, and if you had the 128 like a friend of mine did, you've got that available to you as well.
Yeah.
So it's just so cool to just jump through history like this, and there's so many great packs of disk images that you can get to replicate all of this stuff. And they have a PC core that will give you a 486 level of performance. It's not the late 90s Pentium performance, but it's close enough to get a good chunk of the DOS era handled here. So there's just so much to do on a Mister, which is why I have more than one of them, because I have one hooked up to my computer desk upstairs and another hooked up to a CRT, and now a third one hooked up to an HDMI TV, and that gives me one floater, I guess, because I do own 4 of these at this point. So yeah, you can never have enough Misters, and I just love this project and the passion behind it and just how good these cores have become. And it's constantly in active development. There's always something to talk about. My friend Lou, who does some videos here on YouTube, who also publishes on Retro RGB, keeps up with the Mister news quite well, and I'll put links to his work in the video description too. So yeah, it's been a fun time to be a fan of the Mister. There's more and more hardware choices available now. And this system, the Multi-System 2, while a little pricier perhaps than the lower end offerings, does give you a lot of expansion opportunities, and I think it looks pretty cool too, and it's great to see more hardware options being available for people that want to play around with the Mister ecosystem. That will do it for this one. Until next time, this is Lon Seidman. Thanks for watching.
All right. Then I think we got time for maybe 1 or 2 more videos. So what's this? Why the U.S. drone satellite tech is different than Iran's drones. Okay.
People have been saying that the U.S. has been using Starlink to guide drones on the battlefield. And it's not true. The U.S. military does have something called Star Shield. These Iranian drones. Shahed. These things are, you know, this large. Propeller, explosives in the nose cone. They fly to their target, and then they fly straight into the target, and they explode. And they were very effective. And they cost less than $50,000 each, and they wreaked havoc on the battlefield. Now, $50,000 still sounds like a lot of money. Depends on your scale. You know, U.S. has $1 million cruise missiles. U.S. has a lot of $1 million cruise missiles.
Yeah.
U.S. has missiles that cost a lot more than that.
The fleets are probably heavy right now.
Yeah. The U.S. apparently largely copied the design.
That shocked me, yes.
Right. They got it right. So the U.S. now has a drone called Lucas. But on the Lucas, apparently, rumor has it, what do I know, they're putting Star Shield antennas. So they're linked to the thing through the satellite network and can guide it all the way in.
And that's why Star Shield became Star Shield. Everything else gets jammed, put up a new network.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhere up in the, 12 gigahertz area. It'll get jammed. What's Star Shield?
So Star Shield, from the makers of Starlink, is basically a military-grade defense network that is populated with satellites, but they reside a lot higher than Starlink.
Okay.
And they're not for civilian use at all.
Right? Makes sense.
So SpaceX launched these things.
Yes.
I think SpaceX to help design the satellites, right? I mean, there's SpaceX satellites with extra stuff the military wanted.
From our favorite welfare queen, Elon Musk.
Is in orbit around 500 kilometers up, so a lot lower. Funny little thing. So about latency. So 100 kilometers higher. So the speed of light, that's a fraction of a millisecond. But your packet has to go up an extra 100 kilometers, and then down 100 kilometers. And then the response has to come up an extra 100 kilometers and down an extra 100 kilometers. And that's assuming the satellite's right above you. In fact, if it's way over there, the lines get a little longer. If you raise the satellite 100 kilometers, your packets have to go 400 kilometers further. And that adds up to 1 1/3 milliseconds.
That's it. So,
not much, but you can measure it, right?
Yeah, it depends.
The Star Shield should be 21 milliseconds. So it was put up there by SpaceX.
Yes.
But they say they have turned it over, and it's now the U.S. federal government runs it, controls those satellites, and they're out until the military tells them to put some more up.
Right. Okay.
They launch them and turn control over.
Okay.
Now So what do the Iranians use?
So I believe the Iranians are just using standard GPS chips they pre-programmed.
They are doing fire and forget, right?
Yeah,
they are,
exactly.
Once they pick the spot on the map, the drone has a GPS. It has inertial navigation. Those drift. They're not perfect, right? Because they're measuring the acceleration. What you want to know is the distances, the integral of the acceleration. And so you're picking up errors at every step.
This actually brings up a good point.
But it's better than nothing. You know, neat things, it can't be jammed
Yeah,
because it's not using a radio.
It's not talking anything, right?
You know, bad things, you can't send it after anything that's moving. If it's not in the same spot that was in when you launched it, it's not going to hit it. And it'll make, you know, you suddenly get this GPS signal that says you're in France. You can say, no. I've gone 10 or 11 kilometers southeast of Tehran. I am not in France. I'm going to ignore that signal, right?
So is that one reason they want to incorporate AI into these machines to filter out the nonsense?
Yeah. It's a little, obviously, a little bit of AI can do a great job of filtering. Like, no. That GPS is lying to me. And look at, you know, you get pictures from a camera in the nose cone.
Oh, man.
And then you can compare them to the pictures from...
So they're talking about GPS, which then made me think about this. So this is the map. I don't know, a lot of you don't know this. There's actually a community that reports GPS interference, and you can actually spoof GPS by manipulating the time stamps of, you know, what's going out there. So you'll see, like, they actually do this in, like, war zones and stuff. So, like, you'll see, like, this area over here heavily hit hard. You know, if you go over, of course, they're in, like, the regular languages, so I'm kind of messed up over here. But, let me see. This would be, it's also kind of hard to say exactly, because this is, like, community reported, but you can see, like, there's different areas where GPS interference is massively reported, but we can see, like, this is, you know, the Middle East right now, the hot spot, like, this is Egypt, that's Israel over here, that's Lebanon up there, and then you got Saudi Arabia over there. Iran would be... So you got Uzbekistan over there. And... what's tripping me up is it's on all their native languages, and I want to say Iran is... here? Because that's India. I want to say... no, hold up. That's the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, so I think that's Iran right there, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on. Map of Middle East. I mean, my geography's so-so, so I'm like, at least I'm like, you know, I'm at least more educated than most Americans, okay? Yeah, that's Iran. Okay, that's Iran. All right, I was right. So, right over here is Oman. And then down over here would be Kuwait. Okay. That makes sense. So this is Saudi Arabia. I know that's Jordan. That's Iraq. That's Syria. So, like, you can see, like, right here, this is all GPS jammed over here. Right where the Strait of Hormuz is. Okay? Which is really interesting that we're even getting these reports in, because there isn't a lot of, you know, commercial activity in that area. Let me see if I can pull up a better map, because this is what's today. Maybe we can pull up a prior map that maybe has some more rich data. So let's see, maybe the 12th. Oh, yeah, God, the 12th was, like, heavy. Yeah, so you can see, like, right over here, there's all this GPS jamming. And because it made me think, because when they're like, their stuff is all GPS guided, that would be my first, you know, tactic, is to jam that stuff over GPS. Now, if you're wondering, with all the pilots that are flying over here, because this is Cyprus over here, I believe that's Cyprus. You know, how do pilots get around this? Well, pilots are trained to not only go off their GPS and all those instruments, but also fly by sight and, you know, magnetic instruments and all those other things. So they have failovers and everything else. Let me see if there's a different map over here. GPS jam map. There should be one with flight radar. That should be a little bit better. Yeah, so flight radar has this map. So you can really see over here. So this is pulled in from all of the data. So this, again, you can see the Strait of Hormuz over here, the Persian Gulf. You can see over here. Yep, that's, you know, Israel in that area. So it's really interesting to see how you get all these spots around the world. I remember for a while, where's Ukraine? Where's Ukraine? Ukraine is... Okay, that explains that. Okay, so... I was right, that was... Ukraine. Okay, so if that is Russia over there, yeah. That's Russia. So you can see there's all this GPS jamming around Russia from their movements. It's kind of interesting how that goes on over there. So, yep, there's Warsaw, there's Poland. And, so right over here, that would be Ukraine, I believe. No, wait, hold up. That might be Belarus. Okay, Turkey is right there. Okay, so Warsaw's there, Belarus is there. That's Ukraine. So that's Ukraine. Am I right? No. Yeah. Huh. Anyway, that's your map.
The Google Maps,
You don't
you
even send it
download
anywhere.
right? You can download the
Oh.
Google Maps ahead of time,
Yeah.
and then you can compare the pictures and be like, yeah, okay.
Wow. Wow.
I think that is Mount Everest. I'm a little far east. Terrifying times, all right? Now these things are getting good. I'm good at what they do. Not good for the world. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you all.
All right. And then we got Wireshark found this IoT camera launching attacks on our router from Speedify.
Wireshark, the networking tool. It's really interesting to see which devices on your network are connecting to China, who's hitting, ads.google.com, that new light switch of yours. Who's it connecting to? Given that, what's the most surprising thing that you've seen in Wireshark?
Okay, so this is actually pertinent because you know how I've been zero trusting my entire network? This is exactly why I have moved everything over to an IoT network that even my Elgato Streamlights, my key lights over here, they're now on an IoT network, same as my printer, that I had to do some MDNS settings with Avahi to do replication with MDNS. That was really interesting to do, the figuring out the mirroring and everything. That I'm on one subnet with my devices that I can speak from my side, but they cannot speak back. So when I adjust this light over here, you know, that, it's actually going between two completely different subnets. So that way, if one of my IoT devices does ever happen to get compromised, it stays in the IoT network. And I'm zero trusting everything. And eventually my printers will be on their own printer network once I start segmenting the things even more out. So, yeah, and then it'll get really deep as we get more and more into it. I'll have content all around that in the coming weeks. That'll probably be out in April, maybe May. I gotta work on it. I got a bunch of videos I still gotta record and everything. But yeah.
Recent story where...
Oh, thank you for the follow, Jwoo. I don't know why it did not go off. Why did it not alert me?
We're testing our routers, Speedify on routers, and we're getting...
Actually, on this router, Miri X510, that comes with Speedify installed. And they contact us and they're like, we have a customer who's having real problems with this thing.
Sometimes it'd be fine, and sometimes it was just randomly slowing down a lot slower than you would expect it to. So what Wireshark lets you do is it lets you look at all the packets that are being sent on a network. Say for your computer example, you can take what's called a packet capture, and that's looking at all the different bits of information that your computer is sending over the network. Looking at the Speedify logs, I see that there are thousands of new network requests every second.
Yep, we've talked about Wireshark before. In fact, I should have it on this machine. No, I cleaned out this machine and reformatted it, so I don't have it on this machine. I do have it on one of my other laptops where we have Wireshark on there. And I am mapping all the traffic as well on my SIM, my security information and event monitoring platform. So it's actually capturing all that traffic. So when it goes over and it's hitting rules with PF Blocker NG, all those things are being alerted. And we'll eventually have that covered in different content as well, but I can show you what that looks like, because some of you have not seen that yet. So I have over here in my Grafana, here, I'll just pull this up over here. 1 second here. So, all right. So we have over here, you know, PF Sense and everything, my little dashboards. Let me make sure I'm not showing anything that I shouldn't be. Hold on, top blocks. Yeah, this should be fine. This should be fine. Let me just cover up some of these over here. Okay, so like this is my PF Sense firewall over here from the last 24 hours. So as you can see, there's I have my top 10 IP addresses being blocked. You can see 3 of them. What's been blocked coming in, top countries, the top DNS addresses that were hitting it. These are the ones that were from my side that were hitting things. They're mostly just telemetry and stuff like that. Nothing alarming, mostly just blocking trackers and stuff. And it's, you know, covering a bunch of different data and things like that. But I'm capturing all kinds of data, and then I can actually correlate a lot of that. So if, for example, in my SIM, let me see if I can get this a little bit more redacted for you. Yeah, that should be fine. Cover this up. This is my SIM over here, so you can see these are the alerts that are being generated. Not all of this is true. I'm still cleaning up a lot of alerts, but you can see like Suricata, which is the intrusion detection and prevention system, the alerts being triggered by WASA, which is the EDR I'm using, endpoint detection and response. They have agents on the different devices, and I'm correlating information that's all being fed in. 4 different critical alerts that I do threat hunts on, firewall blocks. A lot of those are not, really worth, going into. It's like trackers, things like that. Same with the WASA alerts, like there's different varying levels. Office 365, it is monitoring my Office 365, but you can see there's even Jump Cloud, CrowdSec, which is I'm using for more things, and if there's any vulnerabilities worth diving into. So I'll have more information going into this. I'm still building all of this out. This is on my GitHub, this whole SIM stuff. It's the SIM Docker stack, as well as pfSense SIM stack and Jump Cloud was a bridge. All of this has been open sourced. Now, the SIM Docker stack is still being built out. I'm still building everything out. This is still a work in progress. This, what you're seeing right here. But the pfSense SIM stack part has pretty much all been done. The WASA Cloud Bridge, the WASA Jump Cloud Bridge is pretty much done. Now it's just a matter of figuring out all the definitions and everything, and figuring out the alerts going out. And what I mean by the alerts is I can show what I'm getting some tests out for right now. So this isn't revealing anything, but I have alerts going to a sample channel of mine, which eventually I'll scrub once it's done. And you can see like when my firewall is blocking an IP address that's hitting certain rules, I'm eventually going to have some more verbosity of what's being blocked, what happened. There were critical files changed on a system of mine. I'm going to document what files were changed, why it happened, because you can see like here, it checked it, it was okay. It's actually sending SHA-256 sums over to VirusTotal to make sure everything's kosher. So there's a lot of things going into this, and I still have more correlations and stuff to build out. Like I said, this is still an active work in progress. I still have multiple weeks probably going into that side of things. But yeah, you can do a lot with Wireshark.
Not typical. They didn't...
Eventually, I'll be building a lot of this capability with Wireshark, probably, with another box that'll have called a Zeek. But with Ramageddon, it's kind of killing my ability to do that because Zeek is going to require me to build a separate box with 8 to 12 CPU cores, physical CPU cores for my calculations, with at least 32 gigabytes of RAM, just to be able to capture all the traffic on the WAN and the different VLANs, and then send that over to the SIM on 2 different NICs, one for monitoring, and then one to just send over everything to the SIM. So that'll be a box that I'll eventually have, because I have all my hardware already earmarked for a transcoding box, and but I may turn that into the SIM box, may turn that into WASA with the NIC, we'll see. But one is definitely going to become the honeypot and a Proxmox box for my red teaming needs. The honeypot I'm going to have with LLM. I'm going to go to Micro Center and get the GPU this weekend for that. That'll be an interesting thing because we're going to have a high interactivity honeypot that basically is going to be able to adapt. So if somebody comes into the network and then starts hitting it like it's a WordPress, it'll start acting like a WordPress and feeding a lot of that data into my SIM. So then my network can start responding to locking down to it. And then ideally I can then take that IOC and IOA information, feed that out through MISP, and then start sharing that threat intel data out to the community. Been following on TikTok for some time and saw you in stream here too. Yeah, I stream out there, although primarily now I'm making YouTube videos, and then I take the YouTube videos and I clip them to TikTok. So I primarily make YouTube videos and stream, and then take the clips and put them on TikTok. So TikTok may still be my largest audience, but it's not really where I'm focusing my efforts, if that makes sense. Because unfortunately, TikTok doesn't really cater well to the kind of content that I want to make, because a lot of it requires deeper dives, more in-depth, a larger screen, and more attention. TikTok, the average analytics that I've looked at has the attention of people maybe dipping out after like 50 or 60 seconds. And I generally have videos that can go like anywhere from 8 to 20 minutes in dives. So YouTube is generally where it makes more sense, and then streams is where we can have better discussions with the community. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm focusing with it. TikTok was kind of like, I accidentally became popular over COVID, so now I'm just shifting into where it makes sense for my community. And then I have Discord, and then I have Matrix as well, so you're more than welcome to join the community too. The links are all in the bio for that. And Blue Sky and Mastodon too. But yeah,
have too many devices connected to the router doing too much, so weren't expecting that level of traffic.
Not like thousands of packets.
Thousands of new network requests every second. Yeah.
Like thousands of those.
Yeah, so very typical. So we started looking at packet captures, looking with Wireshark at what was coming into the router and from some of the different devices. And we found that there was this Windows computer running NDI remote. And it's supposed to allow you to kind of remotely access and control and do some video streaming. NDI does video streaming over the local network and other things, but I think this was allowing you to do some remote control and video streaming.
Mostly great stuff,
but yeah, so we found out that this program was going absolutely crazy and doing what's called a SYN flood, basically a type of denial of service attack where it was just trying to open thousands and thousands of new TCP connections, not fully opening them, just sending the request to open them over and over and over again. And yeah, we had the customer turn off the program and it stopped, and performance went back to normal on the router. So yeah, this program is completely overwhelming the router with requests.
We reached out to NDI and said, there seems to be a problem. Why is your program doing this? And what did they do?
They took the program down.
They took the program down, immediately told everyone to uninstall it. Don't run it again. It can't be fixed. There isn't a new version coming. Get it off your computers. What we believe is that it got hacked and that it was part of a botnet and that hackers were connecting in and using it to launch attacks. Speedify, great at streaming, not so great at participating in attacks. So we, turned out like Speedify got slow because it was launching an attack on us.
Wasn't NDI used for streaming, or am I missing something here? Like I remember, NDI was like I don't remember. There's something about
probably trying to launch an attack on someone else. I don't
yeah,
know.
I think it was trying to actually.
I think we were an accidental victim.
Yeah.
I built a honeypot for my Unihost last night to send me email the moment someone touches my files on Unihost. I just wish I knew if the code itself is a security risk to the server. That's one of the risks you have with a honeypot. That's why when I make my honeypot, it'll be on a whole separate physical server with the LLM server on its own box on a separate physical NIC. Completely physically isolated on the firewall with its own subnet, not even VLAN. It's a whole physically separate network on the same physical firewall. It's on a different network interface card in that box because I have multiple NICs. So yeah, this is Wireshark.
Here. So this is a screenshot. We were talking about Wireshark. What Wireshark actually looks like. Silly us, we don't actually have Wireshark on this computer we live stream from. Mm-hmm. We keep nothing but the streaming software on it. It's the sacred computer that no one can break. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so it's a list of packets. All the different packets get sent, so you can see, the time that they got sent. In this case, it's talking about the time since the beginning of the capture, but you can change to show, actual clock time and stuff. But then it shows IP addresses, the source of where it's sent from, and the destination that it's going to. So you can see packets going one direction, originate from a source out to a public IP on the internet,
right?
Coming back in, usually destined for your local IP address, and coming from an IP address on the internet. And then Wireshark does all this analysis. It looks at the headers and pulls all sorts of information out of the packets. So you can see different protocols. There's TCP packets, and then on top of that, you have HTTP packets. There's DNS packets. And so Wireshark does all this analysis and gives you extra information about what's going on, what the different ports being used are, and see new connections. So there's different flags on TCP connections. SYN packets and SYNACT packets means that a connection is starting. Yeah, so I mean, you can see down in the bottom pane, it shows you the actual data bytes of the packet, and you can jump in and look at all the different headers and expand different pieces of it. The way network packets work is there's layers of headers. So you have your Ethernet header where it's getting transmitted over the kind of the physical
You
layer.
got your OSI, 7 layers.
Internet protocol, IPv4, IPv6 layer would be on top of that, and that tells you where the packet's going, where it's coming from, and then you have your different protocol, TCP or UDP on top of that. So it kind of goes down the stack, and then you have application below that. Gives you all the information there. You can see all the different bits of the packet, and it's very useful for kind of diagnosing what's going on.
It's really crazy. I love Wireshark. It runs on everything: Mac, Windows, Linux. I don't think it runs on phones, but
you can run it on phones. You can run it on Android. In fact, if you use the I don't have my actual Ray Hunter with me. This is another one that I set up for a video, but this is a Ray Hunter. If you use Ray Hunter, it's essentially a Wireshark. It's capturing in a PCAP. And then you take that PCAP file when you connect with it and just open it up in Wireshark. If you have an Android phone, you can basically run Wireshark on your phone. At least I know you can with the Linux phones, but yeah, you just, you can do it. I've seen people do it. Kali Net Hunter, things like that. But you can't do it on an iPhone.
And it really shows you everything going across your network. You can see DNS requests. In the old days, before HTTPS, you could actually see the web pages go by in packets. All right.
Yeah, that's how the Wall of Sheep works when you're at DEF CON. Yeah, you could actually see people's login information and stuff like that. But it doesn't just show what goes on your computer going out. It shows everything on the network. Like everything on your subnet. So if I were to turn Wireshark on this computer, I'd see everything on this subnet, which has this desktop, that desktop, my laptops, and Yitz's computer, and my phones. But it doesn't have my printers and all that other stuff, so you wouldn't see any of the other fun stuff, because that's all isolated. Although I haven't moved over my Roku sticks yet, but I did build a VLAN for my Rokus that they will be on their own VLAN separate from the IoT devices. So I'm splitting everything out to their own network. Like it's even more insane than a lot of enterprises usually zero trust their stuff. But yeah, Wireshark's a good tool. You should all at least understand it quite a bit. You would see whatever the switch is sending that port, not the entire subnet. Yes and no. You can actually see the whole subnet because I'm VLAN'd out here. Yeah, you can see the whole subnet. Because when I was at DEF CON, you could see the entire network, and I know we're not on the same physical port. It's not just the same physical switch. It's everything on that net that's just talking over it. Yeah. And then, let's see, we have, let's see, HBX shared this. Weidenly, Davidson, and Lofgren introduced bill to reform FISA Section 702, protect Americans, constitutional rights, and plug data brokers surveillance loophole. Woo! Not that it'll probably pass, because, you know, people don't give a crap about our rights. But this is good. I don't have VLAN, so I'd only see whatever my switch sends my port or have. I have one switch. I have two switches. I have 2 switches and 4 access points. I may consolidate all of it to 3 access points. With 2, 1 basement, 1 second floor, and then 1 outside. Should I be worried? I don't have any IoT devices. I wouldn't be worried. So, in all honesty, should you isolate your IoT devices from your main stuff? Yes. Is it a must you isolate? No. It's one of those, it's helpful because the reason why you generally want to isolate your IoT devices is, IoT devices generally are the least secured, updated devices. They're often taken over for botnets, malware, things like that, your smart light bulbs, things like that. All that stuff are generally the least secure devices. So I throw those on an IoT network that's hardened, that's traffic shaped and limited to all hell. Like that entire IoT network, I only allow outside the network. I think I have it throttled to like 1 or 2 megabits per second. Like that's all it needs. It's my thermostat. It's my stream lighting here, because the stream lighting doesn't go outside the network. It literally just goes to this computer. Well, the computer talks to it. It doesn't talk to the computer. That makes sense? And then my printer. That's it. So it doesn't really need all that much data. Just your desktop, laptop, phone, and server. In all honesty, depending on what your server is, I would probably, at most, separate the server out on its own network from the rest of the stuff. Like I do. I have a separate network for my NAS. I have a separate network for my SIM. You know, the security information and event monitoring server. I have a separate network for the Dockers that run all my social media bots, which happen to be on the physical SIM server. They're on a whole different VLAN for that. I have a separate VLAN for the Dockers running N8N automation, which again happens to be on that server too. It's just isolated, Dockerized in a VLAN. So I containerize a lot of that traffic to minimize how they can be pivoted on the network. And then these will be my entry points to my network from the outside. These are the TwinGate nodes. They'll be using TwinGate, using Raspberry Pi 4s. 2 of them for load balancing and high availability. And they'll be on their own VLAN, which will only have access to certain networks. So I have to log in through TwinGate to get access to those, and then I'll be able to pivot through my network as I need, just like I'm anywhere, to get access, and it will only be able to give access to specific routes and devices based on the identity for the people that I allow. So, like, I can access my LLM server, which is on its own VLAN, if I give permission to those people. So, for example, I can, you know, if I were to give, like, say, an employee access to my NAS, I could then say, you have access to access only this part of the network and these shares on my drive, to access it out that way. But then I can log in, and then I can go into my LLM server in my full NAS the way I want, and then I can also then grant myself SSH access that I wouldn't grant them. What are alternatives to systemd? Init scripts, but I like systemd. It actually is a lot better than what we used to do with init scripts and cron jobs, because tracking down journals and logs and all that the other way was a pain, comparatively. You're installing pfSense, not working, you need help. You're installing it on Proxmox? Why do people try to install pfSense on a Proxmox? That overcomplicates things. I always install it as a dedicated appliance. Firewalls, ideally, should be a dedicated appliance. Keep your firewall as a dedicated appliance. It simplifies things, and it also makes things a little bit more secure that way. But if you do need help otherwise on pfSense, I have a whole bunch of documentation on pfSense on various documents and markdown on my GitHub for pfSense SimSOAR on GitHub.
Rascalilic is now chilling in the lab.
I know you can install pfSense as a VM on Proxmox, but I generally don't recommend doing it. People overcomplicate things. Alright. Oh, thank you for the follow. I virtualized OpenSense and pfSense for years because sometimes I need to check TTY on a headless server in the ceiling. Yeah, but generally speaking, you want your firewalls and routers to be a dedicated appliance. It simplifies a lot, and it secures a lot more, too. I've always kept them as separate physical appliances. It's one of those just because you can, doesn't mean you should situations. But, yeah. I have my pfSense on a whole other super micro box. It makes my life easy, because then I literally just go, oh, I'm having issues. Power button. And we're back. But, yeah. Alright. Well, it's getting a little bit late. Just a penguin trying to learn how to hack with ethics. Nice. Well, it's getting a little bit late, guys. I know I was supposed to stream yesterday. I had CrowdStrike take me out for a nice dinner along with the rest of my team, so I didn't get to stream yesterday. This was to make up for it. Tomorrow, I'm gonna try to stream again. Maybe we'll do some gaming on Linux. Y'all have maybe convinced me to play the final since I did download it. We'll try to get into doing some gaming on Linux streams again. But yeah, so the next official stream is Sunday. I'll try streaming again tomorrow. During the workday, I'm going to try to set up my Zero Trust network access nodes. So, should have TwinGate set up on these two little guys over here. We already got my Unified controller moved over, so the Unified Cloud Key is now decommed, and now I'm running on one of these guys with PoE, with a nut controller and everything. So that's been fun. I'll have YouTube videos on all this stuff and everything, and then once the Zero Trust network access nodes are done, I will be back to focusing on the SimSOAR. And then I got to work on making a whole bunch of YouTube videos, because I got a whole bunch of different scripts and everything. I still got to record the video on when I took the A+, the Security+, the Network+, because I had to go through WGU, even though I had a CISSP. My thoughts on that. I have a script that I'm writing about why I left my last job, which should give you some learning lessons that I took away from that about, knowing to stand up for yourself, and when you know you should leave your own when it's time to leave your job, and when it's toxic and things like that. Because I like my new job, making more money, dealing with less BS, got myself a promotion, all that jazz. That's gonna be a pretty long video. From what I can account, it's probably gonna be a 20-minute long script. But yeah, there's a lot that we're going into. I still got to record the video talking about the pfSense dashboards and things that I've put together there. Finishing the pfSense, the sim, SOAR, and SOC that I'm building out on GitHub. So make sure, if you haven't already, check out the GitHub. I'm slowly adding more and more to it. I still think I'm a few weeks away from fully finishing the home lab to the point I want. There will be a honeypot that I'm going to be putting together in the home lab at some point with an LLM for high interactivity. I'm going to go to Micro Center probably this weekend to pick up the GPU for that, but I'm probably not going to build that GPU for, that server for a week or two. But that will be coming down the pipeline. So there's a lot of things happening, a lot of tinkerings. But I'm back, baby. I got over the burnout that my last job forced me to have, so yay. So I'm happy. Well, give me some time. As you see, I have a backlog of a lot of projects I've been working on. But we'll get back to it. And of course, as I said, I already got my room booked for DEF CON, so that's more than likely going to be happening. I still got to get the ticket and all that, paid for, but the hotel's at least booked, so that's happening. But things are happening. Things are looking up. Yeah. So I'm gonna try to stream again tomorrow evening, doing some gaming on Linux as well, watching some stuff. And then Sunday, I'm gonna try to be on stream a little bit earlier, so we can get through a bunch more videos that we have to review, because I have that backlog of stuff that the community wanted me to look at. But I do have to take my dogs to the vet, so I'm at the mercy of that first, because dogs come first. I mean, I love you all, but my dogs are more important than you guys, and I think you understand that. Look, dogs are better than people. I think we can all agree on that. Be a fellow diversion agent? No, I am not. I'm still getting back into all gaming on Linux and all that stuff. I need to do a lot. I have a lot of games that I need to get back into. I still haven't beaten Cyberpunk, and I gotta replay Morrowind and Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and I still haven't even played Elden Ring, and finished Red Dead Redemption, and even finished Fallout 4, and there's just so many things we haven't done. But anyway, it's getting late. I love you all. Make sure, if you haven't already, follow me on all of the socials. I am on YouTube. I'm on Discord, Matrix, Blue Sky, Mastodon, TikTok, Twitch, Kick. As I said, YouTube. I think I said that. But yeah, follow me everywhere. Join the community for Discord and Matrix. The links are in bio if you don't see them in chat. I will try to see you all tomorrow, if not Sunday, for the official next stream. Stick around for the raid if you're on Twitch. Love you all. Stay safe. And, as always, happy hacking. See you all, hopefully tomorrow.